Imagine going to live on a mountaintop by yourself, forever. You build a home that no one will ever visit. Still, you invest the time and effort to shape the space in which you'll spend your days. The wood, the plates, the pillows, all magnificent, curated to your taste. This is the essence of great art. We make it for no other purpose than creating our version of the beautiful, bringing all of ourselves to every project, whatever its parameters and constraints. Consider it an offering, a devotional act. We do the best as we see the best with our own taste, no one else's. How does that land for you in terms of the creative process and your own experience with art?
Yeah, I think, I would totally agree with Rick there. I think a successful creative process, isn't about seeking to be any typically appealing adjective. Like if you're trying to be cool, that's always like the danger zone for me if I'm making art and I feel like I'm trying to be cool. Or if I start getting people in mind who I'm hoping, would be wowed by the work, I'm kind of immediately failing. Yeah. So it really has to be for you. And then even that could be a trap because it's not about impressing myself either. It's not it shouldn't be a performance that I'm going to be excited to look back on and see how meticulous I was or how pristine the work was. Honesty would be more of the goal. So if I'm being really honest with myself, but then the caveat there is a lot of people hear that sort of thing or belong to that sort of school of thought, like I'm saying, and then they go for hyper honest, and they're really generous with everything that's inside of them, which is more than half the battle perhaps, but then that can be to the detriment of technique. You also maybe need to be honest with yourself about did I really sharpen the iron there? Is it a functional home? Like he's describing up in the mountains. Yeah. It's one thing for it to be your dream home maybe, but do the stairs work? Can you go upstairs and stuff like that? So
can you live in it?
Yeah, and you live in it. Yeah, long-term, sustainable and stuff like that. So I think that's, I totally like the isolation thing. It should be just fulfilling to you. It should be the best. Good art to me, when I make it, I feel like it's the best journal entry I've ever done. The most covers all the bases, but then...
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
But then if it's just, it may as well stay in the journal if it's just soothes me. Mm-hmm. So then to publish it,
it's like a bonus.
It's a bonus, and I would want to make sure that it's publishable in a way that would be of some service to someone else. If I wrote it in gibberish, but my own code, that's cool for me. But I would want to get it into a language that others understand if I want to share it, or else that maybe is bordering on indulgent.
Yeah. It can be kind of self-serving if it's oh, this is just for me and I'm just going to share it just because. And who cares if you get anything out of it? It's my art or whatever.
Yeah.
It's sort of an arrogance to it in a bit of a way.
I think there can be, but oftentimes people aren't probably aware of that when they're doing it.
Yeah, no,
or they've been, I don't know about misled, but honesty has been put on some sort of a pedestal, or it's gotten...
It's easy to take the be yourself, follow your dreams message that's sort of been very dominant in culture and society for the last few decades and sort of internalize that and use it to the extreme of well, no one else matters because it's just for me. And especially in the artist world, that message gets ballooned even bigger for sure. Yeah. It's it's all about you, and who cares? If you're doing your own thing, then it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks because you're doing your art.
Yeah.
It's yes, that's great. You want to be authentic. You want to be spreading a piece of yourself within the creation of whatever you're doing. But the issue with that is that art is also at the end of a day a shared piece of work, right?
Yeah.
And if no one else is getting anything out of it at all, then how can you expect for people to it's sort of this balance between a product and a process. And I think that's kind of what we're dancing around here, is that when you're making the art, it's a process. And that's what you want to focus on, is enjoying the process.
Yeah.
Sitting in that process to really digging into it, biting your teeth into that process and fully absorbing yourself in the work. Mm-hmm. But the problem is that yes, that is the purpose of art. And as Rick talks about, it's the creative act, right? It's a way of living. You're living in this process of creation. You're sort of ideas are flowing through you, or different topics or different like, whether it's like a color scheme or whatever, like pieces of the art are flowing through you and you're sort of expressing it in your unique way. Later on in the book, he uses like an example of like you're like a prism and like light comes into you and it spreads out in a unique way that creates your own little like footprint of light,
Right.
which is a cool
That's really
way
cool
to frame it. But the thing is, at the end of the day, you're still creating a product, and balancing that process with that realization, especially in a world where, if you're an artist trying to make a living off of your art, you have to realize that like if you're creating a product no one wants, you're kind of failing as an artist in some sense.
Yes.
Now, you don't have to be an artist for the sake of like making a living and all that. You can totally art doesn't have to be a commercial product, right? You can create art just for you and solely for you. And like, maybe you share it on social media just to document your journey or something. It doesn't have to be about that. But if you are trying to make it that, there's sort of this like tough balance between those two worlds, and they can clash together sometimes. And it's definitely something I've struggled with, like with my writing, is like when I started out, I had been writing for like a year before I started deciding to publish it in newsletters. And once I started the weekly newsletter, I enjoyed it, but the longer I did it, it sort of became this push and pull between writing from a place of loving the writing, enjoying the process, and wanting to write. And every once in a while, I'll be like, oh, I'm just not feeling it this week, but it's that weekly deadline that I've set for myself. And I would find myself in this sort of like, it's a push and a pull. That push to like, I got to put something out, and I would end up, crunching it into like a day or two or whatever.
I know the feeling, yeah.
Rushed art is the worst art. And those are some of my worst written pieces. But I mean, it's all there. I keep it all up. I don't want to hide from it. But like some of my worst written pieces are the weeks that I rushed, and I look back on those and just cringe at myself. But that's actually what led me to separating because the issues sort of got like longer and more in depth the longer I did the newsletter, and I sort of it started becoming less of a newsletter and more of like a weekly in-depth essay. So I sort of like separated those recently, where it's like the newsletter is a lot more lightweight. It's just sort of like thinking out loud. It's a little check-in with a couple of things I'm reading, experiments I'm doing, whatever. And then the more in-depth philosophical deep dives, where I'm like digging into a big topic and like breaking apart a thesis on like what my opinions are on it, or like what I've been learning about it and stuff. Those like longer form essays I'm doing as I feel the need to release them. Sort of like like I'm not putting deadlines on them, basically. As Rick talks about with art, like you can't, if you set deadlines, like deadlines are great once you're in that sort of like end stage and you're like, you know what needs to be finished. But like when you're sort of like experimenting and like trying things out and like seeing how it's going to piece together, putting a deadline on that is very destructive.
Yeah, 1,000%. So your essays, they're more products and the newsletters are more process? Is that, how would you say it?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, the weekly newsletter is still like a product. Like I have the deadline for it where I like put it out every week, but I worry less about making it like a good piece of writing, quote unquote. I just like, it's sort of, it is whatever it is that week. And it's sort of more just like it's a cadence I can fall back on, where I'm like doing a certain amount of writing every week. I'm putting in some, like I'll put little announcements in there, or like, this is a book I was reading, maybe a lecture I was watching, podcast I was listening to, like, and how it's connecting to different things I'm writing about, or whatever. Like, it's sort of like, it's more of a newsletter than what the newsletter had been turning into, which was like a series of essays. And now the essays, like, I still enjoy the process of writing them, but I take my time with them and sort of, like work on them over weeks. And I mean, the current one I'm writing right now, it's getting close to being finished, but like I've been working on it for about a month and a half, 2 months now. So it's definitely like giving that breathing room has allowed me to dive into it a bit deeper.
Yeah, cool. Also, if we're looking at what is any sort of a suggestion, if I could offer any, not to you, but to anyone interested, about like enhancing your creative process or like keeping it going, because that's hard. A lot of people hit ruts, and they can't keep it moving.
Yeah.
Is maintain a process that's more casual like that, as sort of a metronome, so that when you like hit a big chord of like a product, you're sharp. Because a lot of people, they
Yeah.
don't keep like running scales or whatever, or keep a sketchbook or write a journal or whatever the thing is.
Yeah. Some amount of consistency is kind of required for anything.
Totally. But then they have this thing that leads to a lot of self-disappointment, where they have this perception that they're capable of doing something brilliant and putting out something great kind of at a whim. Like, once
Yeah.
I'm there, once I have the right headspace, I'm going to sit down and do my
Once the
next
spark hits,
opus.
yeah.
And it can't. Perhaps for some people it works that way, but I think it's good to just keep it sharp with even stuff that feels sloppy or embarrassing, or depending on your threshold for it, something you would never release maybe or show anyone else, but just keeping it up.
Yeah.
It's good for those big ones.
Technique's definitely a thing you have to maintain. Like, you can't.
Yeah.
It's like with it applies to a lot of things, but like for me personally, like drumming as an example, there's a certain like level of drumming that I can just have in my muscle memory that's sort of like just always there, because I've been drumming for so long and I've done so much drumming that like the technique and the chops, there's a certain level of them that are like, even if I don't practice for months, they'll still be there. Like, it might be a little rusty, like first song I play or something, but it comes back really quick.
Cool.
But there's a certain like range above that of technique that like, if I don't consistently practice every single day and I'm not maintaining and sharpening those skills, they will fade and they will degrade. And there's like certain things like a really fast double stroke roll, or like single speed, or like double kick on a pedal for like metal drumming or something. Like, there's certain like polyrhythms, like certain things will just not sort of keep themselves maintained in the same way that other things will.
Totally.
And I think that exact same idea applies to a lot of art, and that's where people can get stuck, is they think that like art is supposed to be this free sort of open creative process, and if I'm forcing myself to practice every day and work on my sketching techniques or my shading or whatever, or I'm forcing myself to like do my scales on the piano, like, that's not art. That's like this rigid, structured like thing that's weighing down on me. But the thing is that like, that is the foundation upon which you can draw from when you have that inspiration strike. Because when that inspiration strikes, you want to be able to capture it and act on it to the fullest extent that you can. And when you have that technique to draw from, you're able to fulfill that inspiration to a much better degree than if you didn't have the technique built up underneath you. It sort of acts as like a tool belt that you can pull from.
Yeah.
Because the inspiration will come and go.
Yeah.
And sometimes your best art will come when you're not expecting anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, when you're not thinking about how do I do this thing, or you're not trying to come up with an idea, then the idea will come. You're on a walk or something, or you're doing something completely mindless, like washing the dishes, and then an idea comes to you, and then you're like, oh, I gotta
I gotta run.
This. Yeah, I gotta do this right now, otherwise I'm gonna lose it.
But you better have been honoring it in the meantime, right? Like, so you're ready for that moment, because
any
of us would be very lucky to have it. Yeah, exactly. And if you've prepared, you can fulfill. Like
it's like luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Yeah.
I would say that like good art is when preparation meets inspiration.
Cool. Yes.
Yeah,
I like it.
That's probably the good, like a nice way to put it is like, inspiration will come, and it's very powerful when you feel it in that moment. But like waiting for it to come and then acting is less fruitful than if you prepare for it when it does come. Not preparing like as if you're expecting it to come, but like preparing, as we've been talking about, in the way of like maintaining that edge, working on your technique, whatever your craft is in any discipline, and then you're prepared for that inspiration and you're able to actually fulfill the spark of that idea. And I think that balance between motivation and discipline, I think, is where this kind of boils down to, that a lot of people get confused with, is like, how do I, like, question you'll hear a lot for people going to the gym, how do I get motivated to go to the gym? It's like, you're thinking about it wrong. first off, you need the consistency of showing up. The motivation's going to come and go. So there's a certain level of like, you're just going to have to do it when you don't want to on some days. And same with any sort of craft. You're not going to want to draw every day. You're not going to want to like carve wood every day. You're not going to want to do your scales every day. But those are an important foundation that allows you to be an artist at your fullest potential. And yes, the fun part is when you hit that inspiration and you ride the wave of whatever project you're working on. But that is not, you can't expect that to just happen all the time.
No, absolutely not. Do you think that maintaining like a process and a technique curation, like, do you think that that promotes more often having those big inspiration moments? Like, let's say you stopped drumming or whatever it is you're like really into right now, just stopped. Would you still get like a song in your head or a rhythm in your head as often, even if you were like sober of drumming for that time? Or
I think it depends. I mean, for me, I've had this strange relationship with drumming because I've always been like a very rhythmic person. Like even before I started drumming, I was interested in it and I would always do like tapping my fingers on the table and stuff. But so I think there's always an element of like, I'm usually tapping my foot or like drumming on my body or whatever in certain just like quiet moments throughout the day and stuff. I think the difference is that the conditions in which inspiration arises are like basically when you're not trying to make it happen.
right.
So this is what Rick talks about a lot in the book. Like the full, almost the first like quarter or maybe fifth of the book is him talking about cultivating awareness of the world around you. And he talks about it in like these sort of like spiritual, almost woo-woo terms, but it makes sense when you like, once you read the whole book, it contextualizes what he's saying. But basically he's talking about the source, which is like where all of the ideas that are sort of just out there flow from. And then you as an artist are sort of just like, sometimes you'll just catch on to an idea. And if you don't act on it, then that idea will be released and someone else will catch it.
You forfeit it.
Yeah. So like if you like basically he says certain ideas just have their way of bubbling up throughout like the I guess you'd call it like the cultural awareness bubble or whatever. Certain ideas just have their way of like, you know, converging with a few different things that are going on in the world at once or whatever, or like wherever society is at that point, certain like ideas will just sort of like, you can see this throughout like cultural trends, right? Like, you know, different movements throughout history and stuff like that, especially like artistic movements, like the Romantic movement and I don't know, a bunch of others. But this is kind of what he's getting at is like ideas sort of have a time when they arise. And if you don't grab it, someone else will. But he talks about ideas as like, you don't really come up with the ideas, you sort of discover them. You like catch on to them. And then if you have the chance to act on it and you like, you've caught one basically, then you can like move forward in whatever, you know, riding that wave of inspiration, as I was talking about earlier, creating whatever, like sort of crystallizing that idea into something, whether it's written or, you know, some sort of visual art or like even like a sculpture or whatever, you know, any sort of creative output from that idea. But he talks about, so the ideas flow in through a source. Totally lost my train of thought on where I was going with that. But what you're trying, you're trying to cultivate an awareness of the present moment. And that allows you to be more open to bringing in these ideas from the source. But the issue is that like, it's like certain things in life, the harder you try to make it happen.
Oh yeah, slips through your fingertips, like grasping sand.
Exactly. The harder you try to make it happen, the less easily it happens. Like in dating, like the harder you try to find somebody, the less easy it happens.
Yeah.
Or the harder you try to figure out, you know, trying to optimize like maybe a certain area of your life, then the more like chaotic that area of your life seems to be. Like the more you schedule out your life in a calendar, suddenly like your days are filled and you don't have time for anything and stuff.
Oh, yeah, true.
If you schedule out a little bit less and leave breathing room for things, then suddenly it seems like, you know, time flows a little easier. Like things like that. I don't think it applies to absolutely everything. So that's why I'm hesitant to say like never
try to like
caveats
with that.
Figure it out. But I think it's a very, like I've written about this a lot, like I had an issue called The Trap of Understanding, where it's like your need to try and figure out the answer. Trying to find that certainty can become a trap, because in trying to figure it out and trying to sort of like expedite that process, a lot of the time you'll end up actually creating like the opposite of what you want to happen. So like
Totally.
when you're trying to chase inspiration and find inspiration and like trying to constantly be inspired and like catch that idea from the source or whatever,
Yeah.
you're going to end up catching less ideas.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like
1000%.
this weird like release where you're sort of, and this is what a lot of people will talk about with like the law of attraction. I think this is what they're trying to like really get at. You know, there's a lot of like confusing
Yeah.
quantum metaphysical like
Yeah.
language around it.
Yeah, like a
And
formula that you're supposed to.
yeah. And they're like, oh yeah, you just visualize it, bro, and then it comes to you.
Yeah.
And you're like, what does
I'm
that
like,
even mean?
Yeah.
Anyways, I think this is what they're talking about, is like the harder you try to make it happen, then it sort of like works counterproductively to what you want.
Yep.
So when you're trying to cultivate awareness for inspiration, it's kind of about just like letting go and letting whatever ideas come to you. So it's like, it's a lot of like, I mean, obviously cultivating awareness comes from meditation, but it's a lot of like sitting in silence, going for walks without headphones, or like, you know, not listening to music or a podcast while you're commuting or something, or just like not always distracting yourself. And that's much more difficult in the modern world.
Yeah.
You know, there's distractions are everywhere, and we always have the option to distract ourselves with something. And now it's become more of a willpower thing, which you don't want to rely on willpower all the time, but sometimes you'll need to pull on it to like do certain things. I think the best way to like avoid distractions is just to set up your environment in like a smarter way. Like, you know, instead of having your phone charger next to you on the bed, have a book next to you on the bed, something like that. Small like changes like that, which is just, you know, that's from Atomic Habits, which I'm sure tons of people know tons about, which is like, you know, you don't rise to the level of your habits, you fall to the level of your systems.
Wow.
And the best way to create the habits you want is to set up your systems in a good way, so that, you know, when you fall back on them, you aren't left in disarray, basically.
Yeah. Wow. That's really interesting. That applies to a lot of creative situations too, like who you're collaborating with. If you want a good creative process, or if you want to bring people into yours, yeah, you kind of want to vet their art and them, of course. But yeah, looking at, I'm not familiar with the book, but maybe what might be more woo-woo terminology, perhaps, like really like someone's energy, I think really matters in terms of, you know, because you might have someone who's so technically proficient, but it's not going to be a good match in terms of a creative collaboration. So I think of that as, that would be a system. Hey, I haven't read the Atomic Habits. Would that be a system,
I haven't
or a
read
habit?
it either, but I've heard so many people talking about it, and like I've heard so many lessons from the book that it's like I basically know all the biggest takeaways from it at this point. Like podcasts, people talking about it and stuff. But I will read it eventually. But yeah, that's basically like, there's a couple of different things. It shows up a lot in my writing, but that's one of the main ones, is setting up your environment so that basically bad habits have more friction, good habits have less friction, so it's easier for you to do the things you want to do. Another one is like identity change. A lot of people will think, oh, if I want to get in good shape, I just need to do X, Y, Z. The issue is that is a lot more difficult to sustain long term than actually becoming the person who does those things. So you basically, the mindset, like, I don't become a person who goes for runs. I become a runner. I don't become a person who goes to the gym. I become a lifter or a gym goer, whatever.
Sure.
I don't become a person who does writing sometimes. I become a writer. So those are like the shifts people make, and people will sort of like limit themselves, but they're like, oh, I'm not qualified to be a writer or whatever. And it's like, says like,
sure,
why are you limiting yourself to, like, if you're doing writing on a daily basis, you're a writer. If you're doing art of some kind on a daily basis, you're an artist.
Absolutely.
And I mean, the way Rick describes it in the book is like, everyone's an artist to some degree, and like they just create in different ways.
Yeah, that's my whole
like
MO.
A very broad description of art, basically. That's why he calls art like a way of living. But
I think so. Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, Atomic Habits is a great book, and yeah, the energy, like, it's easy to dismiss because it's not like super scientifically like pinpointable. You can't be like, that's where that person's energy comes from. That's their
No.
vibe, like this part of their brain right here or whatever, or like their actions. Like, it's a combination of a bunch of little different things. But I don't think because you can dismiss it so easily, it's nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think vibes, intuition, like the gut, I think there is something very real and almost like scientifically validating about that experience because I mean, I would say what vibes and intuition are micro pattern recognitions that um, the human brain has sort of like built up over maybe thousands, hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. And like we might not be able to articulate it as to why we feel certain ways or why we feel like we just know or like, this just feels right or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We might not be able to like articulate it out or like explain why we feel that way or like, lay it out in like a scientific because it might just be so complex that it's hard to like list out all of the little things that have added together to this feeling. But that sort of energy is very real. And I think, especially in a creative process, um, I mean, sort of like part of what you do as an artist is like learning how to tap into vibes,
Yeah.
which sounds like
Yeah, I think so.
totally unscientific and like
Yeah, it's
silly,
hard to
whatever,
write it
but
out with pen and paper and with any numbers in it. But yeah,
it's hard to explain unless you like create in some way and you know exactly what, that
yeah,
feeling of flow state where it's
yeah.
like, I mean, flow state's really interesting. There's the guy who like wrote the book on flow state, Michael, some sort of really long like Russian or Polish last
Oh
name I
yeah,
can't pronounce. It's like Chasinski or something. I don't know.
yeah,
Whatever.
yeah.
If you look up the book Flow, it's written by him. I
Oh
think he might
cool.
be Ukrainian. Anyways, uh, his description of flow is probably like the best understanding of it I have, which is like this two-axis diagram where one is like the level of challenge a task is, and then one is like your ability to do the task.
Okay.
And if it's not challenging at all, and it's also like you aren't really, it doesn't challenge. So like your ability to do the task is low, and it's not challenging, then it's just boring because it's
Yeah.
like you can't really do much with it, and it's not challenging.
Oh yeah,
It's not
that's
challenging
horrible.
you anyway,
Yeah,
so that's complete boredom.
suffering. Yeah.
Then if you go the other extreme on one axis, you have something that's super challenging, but you aren't really able to do it. That's just
Mm.
like basically torture and agony. Like you can't do anything, but it's really difficult. Like
Oh
it's just like
yeah, yeah,
you have no ability to do anything, and it's just super hard, and
yeah.
you're not getting anywhere
It's
with
not
it.
your language in any way.
Yeah. And then if you go the other extreme where it's super easy, but you're very capable of doing it, then
Boredom again.
it's boredom in a different way, but it's like, this is just too easy. Like, give me something else. Like, I can do it very well, but
Hmm.
it's just like,
Not fulfilling.
it's not fulfilling. Like, I can churn this out, but it's like, whatever. The sweet spot is when it's the right amount of challenging and fulfilling your ability, where it's
Hmm.
like, it's challenging and it's meeting like my ability and I'm able to do it. And that's where it sort of like converges on like, that's when you hit that flow state of like, it's just challenging enough where it's like, it's not boring, but you're still like exercising your technique or your ability or whatever. And that's when you sort of like ride that wave of inspiration like we were
Mm.
talking about earlier.
That's cool. You know, another benefit of trying to spend as much time as possible in that zone is that it really helps with building a healthier, more self-esteem based identity. Like, because you were talking about, what is it? I'm not someone who goes to the gym. I'm a gym
Yeah.
goer. Is that a strong? Was that the
Yeah.
language?
It helps to build the like the identity fabrication around habits for sure.
Yeah, when you witness yourself in that flow state, and famously with flow state, you can get lost in it. So then, like
Yeah.
the whole afternoon passes, or you accidentally miss dinner or something like that, and you're like, all day I was right there in the pocket, and you're like, I guess I'm a guy who can do that. I can pull that off, and
It's like proof to yourself.
yeah, yeah, it's evidence based in terms of like seeing you as someone you admire being. And on either end of the spectrum, on the one you'll feel incompetent if you just can't and it's too high of a task, and then on the other you'll feel maybe lazy or like your life is lacking purpose or something. If it's a really simple thing that you're really competent at, it just falls
Yeah.
apart. Both sides of the spectrum crumble, but that sweet zone in the middle is yeah, we should all aspire to live there.
Yeah. And flow state also really helps you sort of attune to like that vibes sense I was talking about earlier as well. Like when
Yeah.
you're in that flow state, you really you get a sense for like what's working and what isn't, and you're really just like you're really honed in. Like I know when I'm in the flow state writing, I feel like my brain is just like working on like I'm
Mm,
writing out sentences, and I know immediately when a sentence is good and when it's bad. And then when it's bad, I'll immediately just go back and like fix a couple of words,
mm.
and then I'm like I go back to writing and I like reread a part of it. I'm like, oh, this needs changing. That's unclear. Like you feel like you're operating at like high capacity.
Yeah, yeah, fully.
And
It's
when
so
you're in
cool.
flow state with like anything else, especially like drumming, especially like because it's like a very connective, like music is a very connective
Mm,
thing.
yeah.
You'll be like playing off of other people and stuff, and it's just like
Mm,
you feel. Have you seen that the Pixar movie Soul?
yeah,
Yeah,
I love
you know
soul.
that scene where he's like he goes into like the zone when he's playing piano and there's like the waves of energy around
Oh
him.
yeah, it's
That's how
beautiful.
it feels when you're playing with other musicians
Cool.
and you're all in like the pocket together. That's like the
Wow.
sensation of like what's
Yeah,
going on when you just feel like yeah, we're all in this like right now.
it was really generous of them to visualize that in the movie, especially because a really young audience might be exposed to that movie, and
Yeah,
to
it was
just
really cool.
it's so cool and it's so immediate. Like you see that and you understand it. Kind of that scene explains flow state, right? And yeah, it's something to strive for, and yeah, you kind of have to potentially you might want to see it first before you pursue it. Like I'm thinking of a 5-year-old watching that movie, who maybe hasn't honed any of the skills yet to like access flow state. Or maybe kids live in flow state for all I know. I can't exactly recall. I think a lot of play is flow state too, but
Yeah, for
just to
sure.
get it like a visualization of it, at least for me, seeing something always helps pursue it down the road.
Yeah, it helps you like understand it in a different way.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, play. I think Rick Rubin didn't talk about this explicitly in the book, but I think it's sort of like the subtext of a lot of what he's talking about with awareness. I can't remember where I heard this quote, but it's um, most of adulthood is remembering what it's like to be a kid again.
hmm.
And I think play and developing this sense of awareness and sort of like trying to dissolve your expectations for certain things because that can create pressures and
Yeah,
disappointments around, especially in art. Like if you're expecting your art to go well and then it doesn't, like you're just setting yourself up for disappointment in
yeah,
some way. I think a lot of that is naturally just sort of available to children. Like they don't have like the conditioning of society and culture and like all of these things that they quote unquote should do. And that isn't all bad, of course. Like there are definitely a lot of things we learn throughout adolescence and childhood that are good that shape us in
yeah.
positive ways. Like it's not like we're perfect
Mm-mm.
when we pop into the world or whatever. But I think there's that element of like play and awareness and lack of expectation can get lost quite easily. And
Yeah,
it's hard to, especially like as an artist, you try to like cultivate
yeah,
um, that sort of like approach to life. And I think that is a lot of the core of what Rick Rubin's talking about with the creative act is like you're sort of trying to cultivate a life where like you're sort of in the sandbox and you're just like
yeah,
playing around with stuff and you're letting ideas come up and you're playing with them and experimenting with them and you're creating stuff just to see like what happens when you create it, not to try and make a perfect
mm-hmm.
sculpture or a perfect piece of writing or whatever. You want to make the best you can, but you don't want it to have any self-imposed criteria.
Yep.
You don't want to turn it into a homework assignment.
No, no, and you want to maintain as long as you possibly can, like hopefully for your entire lifespan, a non-judgment of any creative process that you do. I mean, you got to be able to be critical with yourself and think clearly in adult ways, but you want a childlike wonder with just the fact that you're trying something, or like just that enjoyment, the joy of trying and of painting or playing music or anything like that, the play of it. I my theory is that every artist, and maybe to Rick's point, maybe every human, because you start this way, or every child is an artist, but it gets lost along the way. Really young for some people, and I think it's like there's a bullying that happens. There's a shame or a peer pressure to stop doing art. Like it's like, oh, I can only draw stick figures or something like that. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you may as well keep going with them or like keep trying. Like that's just such a
Yeah.
resigned thing. I can only draw.
I mean, there's animators on YouTube that just do stick figure animations
Yeah,
and
and
they're
they're
good.
so lively and they're
Yeah.
so good and they're such a contribution to the world. you know? So it's not a matter of, there's so much to technique beyond like the representation of realism, but for whatever reason, representational drawing is like swoops through elementary schools as the pinnacle, and like it's impossible when you're 9, you know. But that's when a lot of people
like it's like the best form of art is if you could draw something that looks just like real life.
Yeah, it's just one caveat, and
it's just one style.
And it's a beautiful style and very impressive when people can do it. But there's an argument that with the iPhone existing now, we don't need it, because I could just take a picture of you, and you know, it's not like commemorating a king anymore, where you have to draw him as he looked or paint him as he looked, because we could take a picture of the guy, you know. But like maybe a more interesting portrait in 2026 would be one that has the essence of an individual. Say if I was doing a portrait of you, I would feel it'd be like a higher calling to try and paint your essence as opposed to your likeness precisely. And maybe, but like
to try and capture like some intangible qualities.
Yeah, exactly. I think it would be more, you would look at the painting, look away, and still be thinking about it. But if it looked just like you or whatever, you'd be like, that's cool. But there's also photos of me that exist. But
exactly.
But that's just for whatever reason, like the standard people hold themselves to, and that they hold themselves to at such a young age that it's not even possible yet to do like hyper realism. And then so many fall off. But
expectations that create pressure.
Yeah. And I think that if we could just keep the non-judgment going, that's like really alive just before that step, and find ways, like there would be a good creative process, find ways to maintain that optimism and that embrace of your own work, and then just keep rolling with it, and everyone could be an artist their whole life long.
Yeah, I think the judgment thing is an interesting point, and I think the important distinction to make is like confusing judgment and taste, because taste is like the ability to say this piece of art is better than this piece of art for some certain reason, and the way Rick would describe it is like how much does that piece of art fulfill its potential, because like every piece of art has like what he calls, I think he calls it like the core, like whatever fullest fulfilled realization of that piece is, that's the core, and then anything else may or may not make it better. And he'll say like towards the end of a process you might want to do what's called a ruthless cut, where you like try and cut out as much of the art as works better for like music and writing and stuff, but you try and cut out as much of it as possible and see what is actually truly necessary to get across what you're doing. You know, maybe if you're doing like a photo shoot, you're trying to like, you're pulling elements out of the composition or putting things in to try and cut away like what is the core essence of this piece of art. And cutting down to that core helps you realize what elements make a piece better or worse, and that's what I would describe as taste, whereas judgment is sort of like a more like expectation based, like sort of this isn't what it's supposed to be, and it's like it's sort of should based instead of want based, whereas
totally,
taste is like I wanted it to be this and this is where it ended up. Where's that gap between you know where this piece got to and the potential it had, versus judgment is like, oh, this is bad because it should look like this, or this is good because it looks better than these other pieces and this is what good art is supposed to look like, or whatever. And the judgment is where the problems in art come from, and the confusion I think people will have is that like they'll lump taste within judgment, and then they'll say, okay, judgment's bad, I'm going to throw that whole thing out.
Oh, and then they just let anything slide, you mean?
Yeah, but the thing is, taste is incredibly important.
Yes.
And it's hard to, unless you separate those things in your mind, it's hard to accept taste as a part of art and being able to say this is better than that. A lot of people will just say, oh, art's totally subjective, bro. It's like, yeah, sort of. It's mostly subjective.
Yeah, but don't use that as a note for everything.
Yeah, you can't just say, oh, like, art is totally subjective, therefore an AI diss track made on YouTube is equally as valuable in terms of art as like Abbey Road by the Beatles.
Right.
Like, then we start getting into crazy territory. Say all art is subjective.
The red zone.
I mean, that gets into another argument of whether you think AI art is art, but But yeah, I think the taste and judgment thing is a really important distinction to make for
Yeah.
helping to decide or helping to delineate between how you like compare art.
Yeah, totally. Two other kind of countering traits that I see in the one is the taste is based off. That's an embrace of nuance. Like any good critique that you engage in as an artist, where if you're talking to someone who's like empathetic and intelligent and usually like pretty capable at what they're speaking on, there's nuance. Like they'll think about how much further the spectrum could be pushed, and like what could be brought more to life in the art, and there's an embrace of nuance. Whereas the other
Yeah, for
one
sure.
is very shame based. The judgment one is very shame based. Like it's a weird moralization of good or bad, and
Yeah, like people
it
hear the
plays no
words
role.
good art and bad art and they think that makes like the artist a better or worse person or
Yeah.
something. Or it's like, some of the best artists throughout all of history have made some real shit that we just never seen. And
Yes, totally. Yeah.
some of the
Sketchbooks.
worst artists can make some really good stuff every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like
Mm-hmm.
it's totally
That's
independent
cool. I
of
like that.
skill, but
Yeah, yeah,
skill and technique play a role in their ability to like capture the inspiration and create something quote unquote good out of it. Like
yeah,
it doesn't mean you're a good artist or a bad artist just because a certain piece is good or bad.
yeah, yeah, totally. And not speaking to the life decisions of an artist, but truly talking about technique here. You don't want to like cancel someone from a technique perspective just because you haven't agreed, or maybe like the general perspective on a lot of their work has been that it's not good. Because like you know how some bands who just belong to like I don't know like the corny category a little bit and the public perception will just put out like a really like just a banger like of a whole album, and like whatever was going on all came
Yeah,
together, and
it
it's
just
just
like
this
surprises you.
stunning.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, you don't want to just write anyone off, and that's another thing that society's really guilty of. Like, oh, this artist is just it's stupid mainstream. I'm above that, but it's like no, keep listening, like
Hmm.
tune in, because there's so much technique there probably, and maybe one day it's going to align with your taste, and then kind of shame on you if you have this judgment toward them, and then you're just out of the loop on you didn't even get to enjoy this great art that came into existence. So
Yeah,
yeah, like
exactly.
those really finalizing big swoops that people make are usually ridiculous in terms of creating any sort of a creative purpose.
Yeah. This can also get into the territory of like separating the art from the artist, which is a contentious point for a lot of people, especially with like certain controversial figures and
Right.
whatever. And I think it's an interesting discussion to have where it's like we separate art from the artist all the time, but also it's usually people will sort of play it both ways. Well, they'll be like, I really like this artist, and therefore that makes me like their art more. Or if
Mm-hmm.
I don't like this artist, then I'll just separate the art from the artist and I'll just sort of ignore like the terrible person they are outside
Mm-hmm.
of art and just appreciate their art for what it is. And I think a lot of people will do that with certain things where it's like they sort of like they try to
Yep.
have it both ways.
Oh, you're pointing out like a double standard where if they don't even like the art, then it's like a very convenient like, and I hate the person too. They'll take like a moral high ground about that decision, but they're not sacrificing art that they would enjoy.
Yeah, so basically like if they enjoy art from an artist and they also like the artist as a person, then they'll say like, "Oh, this art is better because this is a good person and
Oh,
they're creating
sure.
the good
Yeah.
art."
Yeah.
But then if they like some art and it's created by someone they don't like or they view as like morally despicable or whatever, they'll say, "Oh, well, I like the art, so let's just separate the art from the artist
Oh,
and pretend."
interesting.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I'll see
Yeah.
that sometimes,
That's a
and
good point. Yeah.
it's a little bit like hypocritical, but I also think it kind of like it plays into this fact that like when you're creating art, it is quote unquote for you, right?
Mm.
It's a representation and an expression of who you are. But also, once you create the art, it's kind of like its own thing.
Severed.
It's
Yeah.
severed from like it's a piece of you, but it's disconnected.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of both. So that's why it can be hard to like separate the art from the artist because it's like yeah, there's a piece of the artist in that art usually.
Mm-hmm.
Not always. Some artists just kind of make commercial products
Yeah.
basically, which is like what Rick Rubin calls commerce. He's like,
Right.
you're not making art, you're making commerce. You're just trying to make money and whatever.
Mm.
But just trying to make products to sell, which is a lot of pop mainstream music
Yeah.
nowadays, or for an example.
Mm-hmm.
But people will, yeah, like they won't want to separate it for for people they don't like. So then, but yeah,
That's fascinating.
it's interesting because yeah, like there's a piece of you in that art, but it's disconnected. So it is really kind of both,
Yeah.
but it's yeah, it's kind of like it seems silly to say it's a case by case basis, but like sometimes it is. Um, and like yeah, sometimes you can separate the art from the artist more easily, and sometimes like certain works are really tied to that person, and it's kind of hard to separate them.
Yeah. Yeah, what's always really impressive to me is if it's like in no way a self-portrait, but it still feels like there's so much of the person in it. Like I think it's something that Van Gogh gets like really praised for. Is I mean he obviously did some stunning self-portraits, but he would paint like the night sky, but it's a painting of him, right? Like that's so skilled. Like that's such high level. It's what puts him where he's at, I would say, because the brushwork, right? It just no one else has that fingerprint. No one else could do it like that or had done it. And now if someone were to impersonate it, it would be kind of tragic. So I think that that's something to really aspire toward and something that I myself have like
Finding like your own
resorted
style,
to.
sort of.
Oh yeah, I tried to work on that always, but I've resorted to like lots of self-portraiture because then it and rightly I guess, but it can create like an intimate experience with the audience and then they think, oh, like this is heartbreaking, this is so emotional, this is so vulnerable. You get praised for a lot of those things, but I try and challenge myself to paint a landscape port like the ocean and have it be still a picture of me,
Okay, interesting.
as much as if I were to paint a portrait of myself crying, it would be like, oh, like nice, like that's really
Yeah, it's
that was
more
really
like
heartfelt.
on the nose and
Yeah, it's
a
so
little obvious.
on the nose and obvious, exactly. So I that's something that I try and reach toward, like how removed from me as subject matter uh, can it be while still being like my experience, and I think the further you stretch that, the more, let's say it goes, I hope this metaphor stretches, the more it's like in the middle of the table and for both of us to reach to. Because if I'm painting the ocean, but it's me in it, it's a superhuman painting of it, you probably could then reach to that as well and be like, oh, I've noticed that about the ocean too. It
Yeah, it's
feels
like a
like
shared emotional experience, maybe.
yeah, exactly. Which is why, again, like I would, if I was trying to paint you, if I painted a portrait of you and let's say it was really realistic, that might mean something to your family, like, oh, cool, it looks just like them or whatever. But to someone who's never met you, it would be a little bit more of an irrelevant image, perhaps.
Yeah,
But
it's
if
harder to connect to.
but if I painted your like um, intelligence or something like that, everyone who knows an intelligent person would, I think, see something in that portrait, and then it's like of a lot of people, or it's of someone that they love.
Yeah, it relates to more. It's like a more shared, understandable, relatable experience.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I think this is something. Yeah, it's like you're trying to invoke emotions and experiences through your artwork without like telling people what emotions they should be feeling.
Yeah, totally.
Because
Wow.
like that's what a self-portrait of you crying would be. It's
Yeah.
like I'm sad, I'm feeling like a mix of negative emotions. Look at this.
Yeah.
Now you know how to connect to it.
Yeah, and
You
you know the
connect to it
script too
through.
when you see me, like you know exactly what to message me now. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's
Whereas like something like Caspar David Friedrich and a lot of his like landscape, he did Wanderer Above a Sea of Fog.
oh yeah,
Yeah, but
right.
he does.
Sublime. That movement is the Sublime. I don't know if that's the
It
exact
is.
name of
I
the
thought it
movement.
was romantic.
Somehow,
Like
yeah,
early.
it very
I
likely
think it
is
was
the
like
romantic.
early German
If we're saying
romantic or
movement,
something.
romantic.
Oh,
Yeah, sorry,
is
but
Sublime like a genre or something?
yeah, maybe more along those lines.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
I
been a
love that
long
painting.
time since I attended that lecture. But
Okay.
anyway, Sublime, it refers to like awe-inspiring, as it was explained to me, but with even a dash of fear. Like, you know how that's almost freaky, that painting?
Yeah, no, it's like
I
mean he's
love
standing
that
on a
category.
cliff above a
Yeah.
ton of like crashing waves and jagged rocks and stuff, and he's
Yeah.
just looking out across it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's a great painting. But he does a lot of other landscape works where it's like that one's actually kind of a standout piece for him because most of his landscape works are like these huge, massive natural terrains and like a tiny little person.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
that'll
awe-inspiring.
invoke, that'll invoke a lot of different emotions. And like there's one that's like an ancient tomb, and that like the people in it are like barely even noticeable. It's kind of more just about like this, and there's like tons of like overgrowth growing around it, and it almost looks like a piece, like it's in a rocky mountain, and it
Mm,
almost looks like a piece of the mountain, and it sort of makes you think like this is so ancient that it has like embedded itself into the mountain,
mm,
and these people are just kind of there.
mm.
So like that's a way to like invoke emotion without telling
Yeah,
this like the person who's viewing it what to feel.
yeah,
And like
yeah,
that's I think the best essence of art is when it relates to people and it connects with them without being like so overt in its message where it's like this is what this piece of art is about.
yeah.
Like it's like lyrics in a song are the best when they're a little bit vague. When you
Yep.
can connect to them and like find messages and meaning in them without the singer straight up just telling you this is what this song is about,
Yeah.
because then you feel like you're being preached on.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's always incredibly unappealing when you get that impression.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. No, I don't envy the job of a lyricist, the task of a lyricist at all, because that's a hard sell to like, or like hard to find that. I feel like yeah, for the other musicians, it might be a little bit easier to you know because you're not using language as we know it. You're not
Yeah,
exactly
you're kind of just
explaining something.
expressing yourself how you do, and like people will take
Yeah.
it like, you know, you can play like major and minor chords, I guess, like for
Right.
different emotions, but even that, like, I don't know if you know Jacob Collier.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's like he has this fun video where he like breaks the illusion of major being happy and minor being
Oh.
sad,
Mm.
where he plays like
Mhm.
a major key in the saddest way possible, and he
Wow.
plays a minor key in like the happiest way possible. So he's
Wow.
like, those are just preconceived notions we have of like certain sounds needing to sound certain ways.
Right.
And so yeah, like you can play certain chords and certain like arpeggios or notes or scales or whatever that will make people feel certain ways based on patterns of like what they've heard before. But like the way you play it changes how they'll perceive it,
Mm.
and like the way you do your art. There's this great quote from there's this guy on Substack I read. He does like this thing called the career archetypes, where he talks about like vocation and like sort of combining art and work in this sort of like in the modern world where it's like living as an artist and
Mm.
like living off of your work and stuff.
Mm.
And he has this great quote that I've saved where he talks about the human smudge. And he's like, this piece is mine because it has my fingerprint on it. It has, you know, it's not perfect. It has jagged edges. It has the human smudge in it. And
Mm.
I think that's a really good way to put it, is to like finding your own human smudge.
And he's suggesting that that's the pinnacle. Everything should have that.
He's not suggesting it's the pinnacle, but he's saying like that is what will make an art feel real.
Yeah.
Like that's what makes it feel
Yeah,
like
totally.
there's something to it, like that intangible like quality you can connect to when you see that piece.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
I think that's what gets lost in most AI art. But
Yeah.
you can also you can feel it more in some things than in others. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's based on this sort of range of like how vague it is to connect to, and like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like really abstract art,
Yeah.
you can find meaning in it and stuff, but it's a lot more difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. It
You know,
takes some thinking.
if it's like, you know, a red bar and then it's just like gray for the rest of it, and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
how do I connect to this, like how do I,
Yeah.
it's harder to find, like there's still the human smudge in it, but
Yeah.
it's harder to find it, and it's a lot more difficult to connect to.
Yeah. Totally. Or sometimes it's like people are resorting to doing it's such a smudge, you know, that it's like it's they're letting themselves off work a little early. You know what I mean? They're saying like, check it out, like it's so crazy, like you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
this is all me, man. But yeah, if it doesn't mean anything to a 5-year-old or to a 95-year-old, it might not mean anything at all. Like if you
Yeah,
need
so it's
if you
kind of
need to
tying
have
back to what we started with.
totally, I think so, right?
For
Like
sure.
if you need to have gone to school to get it, maybe there's nothing
Yeah.
to it. You
If
know,
it's
like it should have some immediate.
art that only appeals to artists.
Yeah, that's a dangerous
Yeah.
genre.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. Like that
beware
happens,
if you find yourself in that zone and in those circles. I think that's
happens a lot in jazz or like music or something, where
right.
it's like,
Right.
you know, it's the musicians start sort of feeding off of their own technique and prowess, and they start creating complex music for the sake of complexity, and
Yeah.
then they get into, you know, these really weird musically esoteric genres where it's like, you know, experimental hip hop, jazz, funk, electronica, and it's like only listenable to like a couple of people that are going to get where
Mm,
it's coming from.
yeah.
And it's like so niche that like, only the people who are aware of what it's pulling, like, it's pulling from so many different things within music that only the people who like know all of those genres are going to know like how it's coming together to form this unique sound.
Yeah.
And a
No.
lot of musicians can get lost in that trap where they just sort of, I see this a ton in jazz, is like they'll get really into the jazziness and the experimentalness of the music,
Mm-hmm.
so much so that it's like a normal person hears it and they're like, what the hell is this noise?
Mm-hmm.
Like this just
Yeah.
sounds like
Yeah. Take off the
randomness.
headphones. Yeah.
Yeah. So it can definitely, yeah, finding that balance of like relating to the viewer. But the issue is like, you don't want to create art for the audience, as Rick talks about.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't
So
want to be performing.
you're not trying to perform, but like I think it's more about internally finding that balance between technique and realizing the
Yeah.
fullest potential of the art. Because like
Yeah.
making something that's as complex as it can be just for complexity's sake to like try out your chops and stuff as a musician, like that's fine. But like treat it as what it is. It's like a practice in craft and technique. Don't treat it as like, and like work on that being, don't try and also make it like your magnum opus
Yeah.
where you're like
Totally.
trying to
Yeah.
like be super profound and stuff.
Yeah.
Like it can be a
No.
different thing, but like
Yeah.
realize what that potential of that piece is. Like if you're trying to do
Yes.
something else and like that isn't what that piece is meant to be, and you're like, oh, but I just want to make it super technically complex and like, show off all my skills, then you're performing in a different way. You're not performing in order to sell to more people, but you're performing like, you're not realizing the potential of that art,
Mm-hmm.
just in a different avenue, basically.
Yeah.
And I think it's just performance in a different way. It's just dressed up in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Totally. That's a really good point. Yeah. Anytime that you can, again, put something so real about yourself out there that, I mean, I'm only speaking. I can only speak on visual arts, but from that perspective,
Yeah, for sure.
that like transcends words, hopefully, like where you're not like it's perfectly articulate but without words. I think that's the highest offering. And if you're doing that with like, if you're taking really like deep inventory of yourself and being super honest, you're going to put out something that's going to be widely enjoyable and going to be, and like going to land, or maybe deeply enjoyable. I don't know about widely, that doesn't always work, but deeply enjoyable most likely, like if it's just from that like rigorous place where you're being real about technique and like pulling from a depth within you. Yeah, it's gonna serve that purpose. But there's so many traps in the way. It's funny, it was interesting. You said, what was it you said about Rick? He's pares things down, or he strips them down to their core.
The ruthless cut, yeah. Sometimes he'll do
the
it.
Ruthless cut. Yeah, there's so much extra stuff that comes up, but most of them I find, if I'm working on a big project, they're efforts to obstruct what I'm embarrassed to show. You know what I mean? Like it should be pretty real by the end. I don't know about vulnerable because that's kind of a buzzword, and then that in itself can be an add-on. It's not vulnerable enough. And then you start throwing in confessions. It's like, oh, well, that didn't need to be there. You know what I mean? But like that can be another way to like, you're worried it's a little, I don't know, if you worry it's not fully like intellectually evolved, you might compensate by making it very like emotionally in depth. But that you gotta really trim the hedge and then just present what's really at the core. It's interesting. I'd never read it, never knew that point that he makes, but that's pretty precise to what I've found to be true with creativity.
For sure, yeah. And I think this is like the core of the creative act and being an artist is like developing that vibe sense we were talking about, where it's like finding that balance of all of those different pieces and letting the seed like grow into what it needs to grow as for that piece of art to be its fullest potential without trying to figure out, oh, what's the right balance of vulnerability and whatever, and what's the
trying to make a hybrid.
I need to make it like profound and emotional at the same time and all these things. It's like, no, what does this piece need to be and how do I best serve that?
Yeah. Because you can make so many pieces. That's one thing that I'm still learning. I don't need to say it all at once. And that's a big pressure, maybe, that for me when I was younger, maybe that a lot of young artists put on themselves, like teenage art. It's very like massive. It's very major. And the word's eluding me right now.
Yeah,
But
it gets described as angst a lot of the time.
yeah, it's
Or
really
it's like
sentimental and all-encompassing, which is
emo, I guess.
cool. Yeah, emo. And it's like a valuable snapshot, but it can be really false, or it can be in the way of what it of its core. It just needs to be one thing, because we got a long time. We got a long time to hone the craft, and you can just explore. I like stuff that explores such a singular idea. Like, when an album, like it's a concept album, it's all about just one tiny thing. Like, those are so cool. And then that invites me to engage with more of that artist's stuff. I'm like, wow, if that's how they looked at like this album on whatever theme, I'd be curious how they tackle this other one, or if they do. But when it's just like, it can get pretty bland when something's about everything.
There's a lot of seeds that come and go, and, or ideas, like sort of like the same idea or same word, different thing.
Yeah.
But and it's the challenge is like not trying to turn every seed into a full-on garden.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
This needs to be all these different things. It's like, no, it can just be like a tree or a single plant.
Yep.
Or maybe a small collection of plants or whatever.
Totally.
And another hard part of it is like sometimes seeds aren't going to sprout. You'll have that idea and you grab onto it, and then you're like, oh, well, you try out different things and it just doesn't grow anywhere.
Yeah. And you got to be honest with yourself.
You have to be honest with yourself, and this is what artists will call killing your darlings, where like, you start work on a project and then maybe you take some time away from it or something. You come back to it and it's just, you fully like disconnected from like the vision you had for it. Or, you're working on something and you just sort of hit a block, and like maybe you step away from it for a few months, you come back to it, and then it like, maybe it just connects again and you are able to finish it. And sometimes, it just goes on the cutting room floor.
When do you think discipline is required versus like inventory of yourself is required? Because at the one point, well, it was hit them with the line again about a losing game. What was that? You said you win. You can't win it. What?
You can't. The only way to win a game that you don't want to win is to quit the game, and the only way to lose a game that you want to win is to quit.
That's amazing. I'd never heard anyone put that puzzle together like that.
Yeah.
So when do you think that applies? Like, that would be a dilemma for me, is if I'm like no longer feeling the art. But then again, it's like I can't just be going on whims and impulses and just like when I want to. Some things just have to get done. And not so much like a commission, obviously I would honor that. But like for a personal project, at what point do I owe myself, would you say, or does an artist owe themselves the full realization of that seed? And when is it like this batch is it's going in the manure?
I think it depends. So yeah, obviously with commissions, it's different.
Yeah.
But yeah, for any sort of like personal work, knowing when to quit, like I think it's not exactly the right question when it comes to art, because art is more of a process. So like you can sort of just put it on the quote unquote back burner, or even like, metaphorically take it off the stove for a little while and like shelve that project or that idea for some time and let it be what it is as it currently is, and don't try to like force the finished product out of it. And then, as time goes by, you might be working on other things. Maybe an idea crops up about that thing and it's in the back of your mind and you're like, hey, I know what this is meant to grow into now. And then you can work on it again. And then maybe, it turns into something completely different than you originally thought it would be, but it might be better than what your original idea was.
Right.
But also, I mean, it's for a personal example, I had a video I was working on in like November. It was like a video essay.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to start doing my essays sort of as like a video essay style. And I've planned out all the B-roll for about 70-80% of the video. I had filmed maybe 25-30% of it. Wow. And I'd edited like most of it of the beginning as well. And I was really proud of the editing in the beginning. And then throughout December, I just got super busy and I was doing other stuff. And it was still in the back of my mind, like, oh yeah, I'll get to that. I'll finish it up. And then, but there was still like, even when I was working on it, there was that piece of like doubt in my mind where I was unsure about what the finished product was going to look like. And I was unsure about whether I wanted it to go in this direction, because what I'd sort of done was just turn the essay I had written into a video. And I'm not sure if I really wanted to do that. Like I kind of wanted it to be its own thing, but I don't think
you wanted the video to be like more cinematic?
I wanted it to be like about the same topic as the essay, but sort of like an expansion on it.
Sure.
Whereas I was pretty much just reading the essay word for word.
see.
and turning it into a video format, which is fine. But like I wasn't listening to that self doubt about the finalized project, and I think that's ultimately what the disconnect was, because I was busy throughout most of December, and I was like, okay, I want to finish this video for January. So towards the end of December, I got back to working on it again, and I started working on it a bit, and I was just like completely cut off from the vision of what I had for it, and I realized like this isn't going to turn into what I had originally thought it was going to, and I'm okay with just letting, like, it was great practice. I got video editing practice in, speaking on camera practice, practice with planning out the video and filming B-roll and stuff, but I'm not going to, like, that's when I decided to not finish it and just cut it off. And it was a hard decision to make, obviously, because you want to finish it. But I think it was the right choice. Yeah. And yeah, like that's an example where you have to sort of, not all seeds grow, not all seeds sprout, and even if they do sprout, maybe they'll wilt away, and it's okay. Like, it's not the end of the world. More seeds will come.
Yeah.
And I'll probably eventually, like, ideas sort of come and go in different forms. I'll probably create a video on it in some way in the future.
It'll have a rebirth, yeah.
Yeah, it'll be reborn through some other avenue, and it might be better. So worrying about like what I lost and like, oh, it was all a waste of time, like that's just a bunch of self-criticism and judgment getting in the way.
Yeah, and it's a little productivity obsessed too.
Yeah.
There is always that. There's like the sunken cost fallacy.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I put so much work into this, it has to be finished.
Yeah.
But it really might not be fruitful. You might have very authentically arrived at the conclusion that, at least on the trajectory it was on, it needs to, that wave just needs to crash into the shore, and it'll come back way back there and with a lot more life.
Exactly, and that's the beauty of like enjoying the process, is like,
yes,
you're not creating the win condition around being the end product is the main goal. Like, having a finished product is great, but like the win is the process of doing the art and enjoying the process of making the art. So as long as you focus on that, and like that, as long as I'm doing that and enjoying that and like I'm in it, that's the win condition. Yes, the finished product is great, but like it's not a failure if I don't complete something. Like, it's not a waste of time. Like, it's not, like, that's just not productive.
Yeah.
To think that way.
No, it's really not.
Especially for art. Like, for some things, it's a little different, but like, especially when it comes to art, like you really just want to focus on the process of creating the art.
Yeah.
And the end product's kind of just a bonus.
Yeah, it is. And then it's a extra bonus and almost reaching unlikely that a lot of people are going to love it at that point. Like, you're jumping through so many bonuses that by the time you're at like putting it out and expecting something to, like, let's say, go viral, like a lot of artists fall into that and then they're heartbroken because it doesn't, or expecting really everyone to come and like give you a pat on the back and say it saved their life or anything like that. Like, those should not be the goals. And when people embark on the process with that in mind, like, there's so much death in the middle, and I think that's mission impossible. You got to just stay right there in the process, and then the release, and then the sever that we were talking about, and then it'll do what it does. Just humbly offer it and move on. Actually, it's interesting. A lot of artists don't want to talk about what they've just released, right? Because they're working on something else. Like, it's so uninteresting to them what they might even be trying to promote, or or their manager might want them to promote at that time, because it's done, it's severed and over, and they're excited about what they're doing right now that they probably can't talk about. So it's really interesting, and that's usually an indication or a characteristic of a really successful artist. I find is just that really in the moment excitement.
Yeah, for sure.
Let alone wanting to do like a reunion tour from like an album from 25 years ago. They're usually pretty disinterested in that kind of self-worship, which is good.
Yeah, for sure. Like, most of the best artists definitely like have that childlike play approach that we're talking about, for sure. But I'm curious more about your actual artistic journey. I know you studied art at UVic, right?
Yeah, yep.
You did visual arts.
Yeah, visual arts degree, UVic.
Cool. And
6 years of it.
Oh, wow, nice.
Yes, sir.
And I'm curious what year. I know you do your stop motion animations, and you're trying to get into like some film festivals and stuff. Like, what is your creative process like, and like how does art fit into your daily life?
Okay, let me think. Unfortunately, it's not daily. I really wish it was, and that has a lack of discipline to blame, or being pulled in many directions to blame. I wish that there was at least an hour a day. So to speak in terms of what the goal would be, it would be a daily engagement with it. But
That's fair enough. At least like on a regular basis.
On a regular basis, how it looks?
Yeah, just like, primarily like drawing and painting, or like.
Oh, sure. Okay, I gotcha. Yeah, so it all.
What's your experience?
Yeah, so I only drew and painted from, age 3, and then just didn't quit at 8, like a lot of people.
Yeah.
And then I continued all through like high school. Always did art classes and always enjoyed it, but only ever saw myself as a one who draws and paints, and received a lot of like generous and celebration of my ability to do realism. Which is, again, I was just lucky that, not lucky because that's amazing on my behalf, lucky because where my particular abilities were through teenagehood are what non-art people typically praise, so it put a battery in my back to keep going with it. But I swear there are so many people out there with such better color theory than I have, or just any number of abilities, or as an artist, who don't receive that praise because they would draw you like a stick man or whatever, you know what I mean? And then but even the background might be this stunning red, but
unobvious craftsmanship.
Yeah, and so that's tragic. So anyway, so I was carried by a lot of I don't know, like the encouragement of adults around me for that ability through childhood, teenagehood, but didn't really have much of a voice in my art. Just kind of drew like portraits of celebrities, and then I went to university, UVic, for visual arts, and I'm really grateful to both my parents for being really encouraging of that and not batting an eye, just like, sure, visual arts, like that was so cool of them. And I'm forever super grateful for that instinct that they had to just let me go out and do that. And then at UVic, I learned so much more about art and about the creative process. I think all the professors try and embed that, even if it's not a lecture class, even if it's a sculpture class or a painting class or whatever. That's a goal of theirs, to look beyond the practice of like these 18-year-olds coming in and look deeper and try and pull out, or help them pull out a deeper voice that might be buried. So that was what university was, basically a long 6-year process of working on that and having a lot of really helpful instructors assist me with that. And eventually I found that it wasn't my drawings and paintings, especially the ones that leaned more realistic, were like getting less, wowing the people less as I went on in the critiques, because we would do critiques, we would paint something for 3 weeks or something, and then I'll show it and I'll talk about our work. And that's where people were really emphasizing, professors were really emphasizing that realism might not be the final thing. The final goal might not to be making the most realistic looking thing. And then I just kind of thought, okay, I got to pivot. Maybe I want to do some storytelling, because as a kid I like to write stories. And I thought, weirdly, like I enjoy watching a movie more than enjoy looking at a painting generally. For example. And I actually, more than anything, despite having zero musical ability, I enjoy listening to albums. Probably most of all, that would be the art I've most consistently enjoyed through my life has been music.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, I want to do some more conceptual stuff and some more narrative-based stuff, because that was where some outside interests lay, but I never had incorporated them. So then I started working on that, and I just started doing these really simple stop motion animations where I would just draw, like maybe 100 drawings of a guy moving around. I started with drawing, I would watch these skateboarding videos and then I would draw them because I really liked that movement, the way it looked. And it would just be the outline of a skater on a white background and just like doing a kickflip. And it took me the full 3 weeks of a project to like land a kickflip on the video. And then I like to write poetry too, and I started writing poems and putting them over it. And it was like really coarse, the integration of all this. It really was rough at the beginning, but it was getting much more like people were sitting up a lot straighter in their seats. watching it. And I don't think that's just because it was so inside the kind of echo chamber of like Artville, but I think it was because there was a human instinct, like
the smudge.
Yeah, it has a smudge, exactly. So then I started pursuing that because it's a lot more gratifying to leave your smudge on something. I don't know, it just you know you're doing something right, and it felt great. So yeah, I pursued that, and then the project started getting bigger and bigger. And in 2020, I made this. It was right when COVID hit. I started, and the school year. So I was in my third year of university at the time, and the school year got canceled, right? March 15th or something. And then they just declared no more classes. But of course, that was university, so school was almost kind of winding down. And I just had like a few drawings that I started doing for this project that I wanted to do about my dad. And then I was just tossed into the abyss of COVID with no deadline, with no end game, no finish line, nothing. And so I just like locked in on this video for my dad and just like spent like kind of days and nights on it for many, many months. And that kind of helped me survive COVID. So I made that movie that I sent to you, Coffee with Dad.
Yeah.
I made that
really
kind of
interesting.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that. I did that, and then it probably took me about a year to make that one, a year and a half or something like that.
Wow.
And then on to the next project, just seamlessly, I started making this movie for my mom called More of Mom. And I have finished that now, and then I submitted it to a film festival, which is a creative act in its own, is to learn to promote yourself. Like that is in fact a harder creative act.
Marketing.
because I got to reach into something non-instinctual. Like I'll paint all day and then I'll show no one and I'll be perfectly happy. But I need to like
part of it.
method act as this guy who believes it should be out there. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of creativity to integrating a new personality, or thinking I'm not just a I'm not just a gym goer. I'm not just a guy who goes to the gym. I'm a gym goer. Like there's a lot of identity shifting there, and I'm still kind of in that metamorphosis, but I'm enjoying the creative challenge of that. So anyway, that brings me up to speed. So it did make it. It's made its way into the Short Circuit Film Festival.
Oh, sweet.
So that's you're catching me at a time
cool.
that I'm really excited and really, really grateful, and have that sense of play and wonder and waking up optimistic because something's moving.
That's great to hear.
You
really it's like that vibes thing. You want to lean into like that little spark that like tells you, hey, this is the path, this is the needle I'm moving along. Sort of like, I call it alignment. And when I'm talking about like in terms of Kaizen and like philosophical ideas, that's what I call actually I had an issue on it where I sort of expanded on it and called it congruence, where you're sort of like all the parts of yourself are sort of working together and moving along one thread. So it's like, it's beyond authenticity. It's like you're not even just being yourself. It's like you are in total alignment with what you want to be doing. And like it's not, you're not following your passion. It's like you are your passion almost.
Yeah. Yes. And the less separation between yourself and like the task at hand, the more you are it, the better.
It's like that feeling, like you just get it in your head and you're like, this is it. Like, and that's the shift I've been on this year with content creation and like writing and stuff. It's like, I'm not a guy who writes. I'm not a guy who makes content. I am a content creator, and this is what I want to do. And I love it so much. Like talking about ideas, having conversations like this, like sort of documenting my learning process and my personal growth journey, but like for myself, but also sharing it with other people so they can get value out of it. I love that so much. And like, I love the world of ideas. And that's where I find like my most enjoyment out of creation, which like all ideas based, where I'm talking about ideas with people, writing about ideas and stuff, because I think that's how I value like truth as one of my highest sort of like pillars. And I think ideas are how you sort of get towards the truth.
Yep. Even if you're spitballing, it doesn't need to be exactly precisely correct right now, but you're working on it. You're getting
it's like something you point towards.
Yes. Yeah, totally.
But that feeling of like knowing you're on the path is like one of the best things ever. It's like one of the best parts of art. And it's super cool to hear you, like, you're getting into the film festival. You're feeling in the art.
Yes,
and
totally,
having that
and super alive.
internal sense of alignment is like one of the best feelings.
Oh yeah, and you can never buy it, right? Like you have to earn it. And you have to earn it. So, like the film More of Mom took me 3 years to make. So
Wow.
this is the fruit of that labor. This isn't something I'm earning now actively. You know what I mean? It took a lot of discipline and facing a fear to submit it to the festival, but that wasn't, that was took an afternoon.
Internal things.
Yeah, those were internal things, but the actual craft happened silently and perhaps even in a way that people would have been like, why is he up at 3 a.m. drawing? Like this is weird, but it was for this payoff down the road. So yeah, that's really cool.
To hear.
Thank you, man. Yeah, and I'm
excited to see it.
Oh, thank you.
Once it's available to, out at the festival.
Yeah,
or whatever.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's contagious, the spark, or it spreads. The spark spreads.
Yeah.
And I have to shout out the channel, you.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Yeah, man, and to know a guy who I didn't even know. I met you as a content creator. I'll briefly say that.
Like I knew of you at work.
Yeah, but
we're in different departments. I didn't
totally.
I could recognize you, but I didn't know you that well.
Yeah, and then I was, as I've shared to you, but I think it's a pretty cool story. I was just scrolling like right around the turn of the year, and when I hadn't submitted it to the film festival yet, I didn't necessarily have all that battery in me at the time.
Oh yeah.
And I was scrolling. Like the energy, right? And I was scrolling, and then you popped up, but I didn't even recognize you, right? It was just a guy speaking very eloquently about self-improvement type things, and with a unique perspective, not regurgitating, like with
Which
his own voice.
Was it actually? I'm curious if you can remember.
I can't remember the specific. I started like watching a lot, like in the first 5 minutes, I watched 5, let's say.
Okay.
and then truly a few videos in, I was like, I know this man. And then I couldn't believe it, and I had to really verify that. I was like, because I didn't know your name, like at work, and so it was based off like.
That's crazy.
And I hadn't really heard your voice. I'd seen you putting away with Protus, right? And then I was like, wow, I know this guy. And then I verified with you when I saw you in person next, like, do you know this guy? And anyway, and that was you were like, and I know that you're an individual doing your own thing, obviously, but you like where it interjected with me. Your work was a part of a palette of like this like building for the year. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
I think so. Maybe.
Like I don't want to suggest that.
Expand on that.
I by saying that I don't want to suggest that like I don't know, you were just of some use to me, or like you're part of my big picture. You're part of your big picture,
like
but the spark exactly. Okay. The spark contributed to me trying to build something of my own for this year. Yeah. And it was about this trajectory I was trying to go on, right? So, so then in even the film festival submission, right, that we're now like celebrating, it was that's a product of me like trying to marinate in your mentality by watching those videos and stuff like that. So it just it's remarkable what the spark can do. It is the creative fire, and it is it was really inspiring for me to find it in an unexpected place like that. And yeah,
that's super cool. So like I wouldn't say I necessarily inspired you to submit, but would you say if you hadn't seen my video, like do you think you wouldn't have submitted to the film festival?
Potentially not.
Were you already thinking about it and you're just kind of on the fence, or
excuse me, at the I wrote out, I had like 10 goals for 2026 that I wrote out right at the turn of the year. And that might have been the first time. Well, this is the most I've followed up with myself. I've written, New Year's resolutions on paper, and then may as well have thrown the paper.
Writing them down is one of the most important things. Like
powerful. Yeah. And I shared it with my brothers. I've got 3 older brothers who are really supportive, and I
sharing the goals.
Sharing the goals. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, and to just see a guy talking about these concepts, but have you not just be in LA or on Mars or anything, you know what I mean? Like some distant concept, kind of like a Rick Rubin-esque deity, you know what I mean? Because to hear that is like, but he's not human, you know what I mean? But to have
he is, but he's just further along.
Yeah. He's
harder to connect when he's like, he's been doing
such
it
a legend.
40 years or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll never have a conversation with him. Not that I need to, and I can read his book, and that is a conversation.
I wouldn't say that, but you never know what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah, that's true. We never do know. But with you, you're a human I know, and
Yeah.
you're talking about these things and thinking about them with that that hyper honesty that I'm always really like inspired by when I see it in people. So that was kind of the journey of that. So I didn't want to I
Cool.
wanted that to make the air.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. That's really interesting. Huh. Yeah, I had no I mean, I knew that sharing my content would like, it would reach people and inspire people with like the ways that it's shown up has
Mm.
been uh it's just surprised me in the best ways.
What
So,
have been some of the cool cases?
I mean, other people at work, Cassidy,
Yeah,
she's gotten into a lot of my content and
cool.
she's enjoyed she's said it's like made her pause on a lot of her life decisions and like made
Yeah,
her think about things and stuff. So that's really
sweet.
cool to hear. I had a buddy, I won't say his name, but he was going through some rough times at the beginning of the year, and he had
Hmm.
sort of like not a crisis, but sort of like a mental health episode.
Mm.
And he said my content really helped him, and he like reached out to me, and we chatted for a bit and stuff, and like he's doing better now. But like that
Nice.
was crazy. Yeah, it's just interesting to see like you never know when you start making content, you never know like who you're going to reach with it, and you
Hmm.
never know how it's going to positively impact people.
Hmm.
You also don't know like you don't know who's rooting for you until you start like sharing yourself into the world.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people I thought where I was super close with don't even like talk about the content or interact with it at all.
Mm.
And a lot of people like I sort of thought barely knew me from high school and stuff will just
Sure.
like reach out and like, or if I see them in person, like, hey dude, like what day are you on in the challenge?
Ah,
And I'm
cool.
like, that, what's going on with that? That's crazy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So it's definitely interesting. Like it sort of content shows you who's really in your life, not in like a like, oh, who are my friends and who aren't, but it's just
Who's
it
on that wavelength? Maybe who's in? Do you say
yeah,
congruence? Who's
yeah,
maybe in congruence with
it
it?
changes who um how you see who's on your wavelength. That's probably a good way to say it. Yeah,
Mm.
like you start connecting with different people in different ways that you didn't realize were there before,
Mm.
and it's just interesting,
Yeah.
like sort of stepping into this creator identity. And yeah, like sharing those goals and that accountability is like it's scary, but writing your goals down, declaring your goals,
Yeah.
that's what makes them real. And I go a
Yes.
step beyond that now. I would even say that if you are on the path and you know your path is leading you towards those goals and you know the steps that you're making, you're focusing on um, iteration, and you're working on like how can I improve these certain aspects, how can I like what's working, what isn't, how can I get better, but I know I'm still on this, this direction, this tangent.
Hmm.
I would say goals aren't even like goals, I would say they're inevitable, which is what I've been talking about in some of my recent
I
like
saw it the other night,
my
man. That was
last
very cool.
my newsletter last week. I don't see the goals like the timeline might be up to not interpretation, but like it might be up to difference,
Hmm.
like it
Sure.
might change or
Hmm.
variation. But I don't see the goal is inevitable for me. I have three crazy goals for this year: 50,000 followers across all platforms, 1,000 Substack readers, and making my first dollar off of brand
Nice.
deals or like a
Nice.
paid Substack membership or whatever. Am I certain those will happen by the end of the year? No. Am I certain I will reach those points at some point in the future? Yes. And I am aimed towards those in a way that where I'm like enjoying the process and I'm focusing on like making the art the best that it needs to be. Like as you were talking about when you were saying like you're super excited about your art, you're in that play state and you're really like, you're optimistic about the future of maybe the projects you're working on now, or like you submitted to a film festival and it sort of opens up your world of what you can even be capable of
Yeah.
as an artist.
Hmm.
That same idea, like the funny thing is when you it's like this chasing thing I was talking about earlier. When you're trying to figure it out, when you're trying to sell your art to people, no one wants to buy. But when you focus on
Hmm.
yourself and you sort of forget about the audience and you focus on chasing that sort of internal feeling of like alignment and fulfillment, and you're like fulfilling that spark, and you know that like this is what I want to do, this is what I'm meant to be doing, like this is the path I'm on, and this art that I'm making, like I'm fulfilling new levels I didn't know I could fulfill from before, and I'm expanding my ability as an artist.
Hmm.
that is when you actually reach people, and that's when you start making the art that breaks through into like people start really resonating with it.
Yeah.
And that's when you actually sort of become a quote unquote successful artist, is because people are looking for that authenticity. And when you have that congruence and alignment with yourself, it's instantly recognizable. And the thing is like, it's hard to believe in it when you don't have the results
any evidence
yet. You don't have the evidence yet. But the thing is, like, you just if you just sort of act as if the end goal is already there, you act as if the goals are inevitable, then you're like, what I'm doing now, as long as I know I'm aligned towards that, these are just the necessary steps to get there. And like, I'm just enjoying, like, one day I'll look back on this period and be like, oh dude, remember when I had the podcast in like my old bedroom where we had some phones on a tripod set up and I didn't even have lighting or cameras yet? Like, oh, those were the days. Those were crazy. I'll look back on this moment with fondness once I'm, way further along, and it'll be super cool to look back. So right now I'm enjoying where I am right now. And like, there's a great quote, Chris Williamson from the Modern Wisdom, probably.
No, actually.
Okay. He's like a big, one of the biggest podcasts in the world right now, actually, but self-improvement, philosophy, talks with a bunch of different people. When he was on his tour in December, he was, doing like lectures and like Q&A and stuff. In the vlogs, he kept saying this one thing that like stuck with me a lot. The golden years are right now. One day I'm going to look back on this moment and be like, oh dude, remember the days when we were doing this and doing that? Like, those were so great. So if you just live as if the golden years are right now, you'll enjoy the process a lot more. And ironically, you'll end up creating better art. And more people will end up buying it or interacting with it or getting value out of it.
Because you'll, in not a performative way, but in a really like legitimately integrated way, you are the role now. Like you're in the driver's seat from your perspective. You know what I mean? You're not so much a passenger or you're not waiting on luck. You're making it, like, for lack of a better word. Like you're in the now. Mindset is so important. These are the golden years. Love it. And not high school was the golden years, and not when I make it will be the golden years. The now are the golden years. And just always maintaining that. It's also just an incredible hack to always be optimistic and feeling good. I think it's always fruitful.
Not always optimistic, but it definitely helps. I mean, when you're feeling good, it makes you feel better, and when you're feeling bad, it makes you feel better. So
when you're I see. That shift.
Like, it doesn't keep you in like, happiness all the time or anything, but
no, but I
don't think you were saying that though.
Not precisely, but like, it challenges you to see the best, like, because like you'll
just
see
instantly reframes.
Totally reframes. Oh, that's really cool.
I just love that that perspective.
So, or whatever, I don't know if you want to divulge them or whatever it was, but if there must have been some challenges going in or some mental blocks before starting this journey. If that is so, I'm curious, are they disintegrating now? Like, they're
starting to, I'm getting into like, as I said, I've sort of grown into like identifying with the content creator and like the artist and writer. Like, that's who I am and that's what I want to be. And like, even like telling people that's what I want to do. That's a harder step, is like, I can know that for myself, but like when someone asks, oh, what do you want to do after university and stuff? I'll just go, oh, I don't know. Like, it's easy to just sort of brush it off. And like, but if you aren't honest with other people, you're not being honest with yourself. And it's like, no, I want to do this. This is what I want to do. And like, I'll tell people that I'm like, I want to be a content creator.
Sweet.
And, you have to sort of abandon any judgments people will have, because a lot of people are going to think you're cringe. Like, oh, you want to be like an influencer? Like, but if you're going to think that, I don't really care. Sorry.
100%.
And it's sort of like a disagreeability with that. But like, you can't be agreeable with everybody all the time. And like, if someone is like going to call you cringe for trying. So
whatever.
That's the most cringe thing you can do. It's like, you're trying, you're going after your dream, you're doing what you want to do. Like, that's so lame. Because what they're really saying is like, you shouldn't follow your dreams. You shouldn't do what you want to do. You shouldn't find that internal sense of alignment. You shouldn't lean into that, like, that voice in your head where like, this is right. This is it. This is the thing. Like, I think that's silly.
It is. It's silly, and it's heartbreaking, and it's worthy of pity.
I think it's one of the most tragic things in the world is when people give up on their own dreams.
Yeah.
And because of that, they try to convince others to give up on theirs as well. That is like it's an
It's the
insidious
anti-spark.
Yeah, it's like
It's
an
the wet
insidious
blanket.
poison, and I hate it so much.
Mm-hmm.
But it's tragic to see, and you do end up pitying people because it's like when someone says, "Oh, you're cringe for doing this," it's like, "Oh, so you have given up on yourself."
Yeah,
and it's like that's
at such a young age, assuming this is a peer of yours saying that's really brutal.
No one like has said it to me like to my face or anything, but like
it floats around the zeitgeist as an.
It floats around. You can also like sense it from certain people. Well, they won't say it, but you can you can tell that they're like, they're hesitant, or maybe they just don't understand, and I'm just projecting like my own judgments onto them. But like,
there can be that confusion. Maybe it's never occurred to them that that's a possibility,
especially with older generations.
Yeah.
Like they'll be like, "What's a content creator?" Like,
right? Yeah. What is that?
How do you make money doing that? Like it's definitely a new profession, so it's harder to explain how you like make money. By doing it. It's like, oh, well, I talk on the internet, and then big tech companies pay me money to put ads on my stuff, or some random like sports drink brand will pay me money to talk about their drink on my show or whatever. And they're like, you make a full time doing that? And it's like, what?
Yeah.
But or even like a paid tier on Substack or something. I'll be like, so I do like a weekly writing thing, and like random strangers pay me money to read, the stuff early or get access to a private community or something. That's I'm working on that right now. Actually, it's like the paid Substack tier. I'm trying to figure out what I want to offer.
Is it like a Patreon situation? Like it would be.
It's kind of like that,
content?
but it's within Substack.
Okay.
Because I don't want to have like exclusive writing that's only accessible to people if they pay money. Because I don't want to like gatekeep knowledge or valuable information for someone that might otherwise need it. Like I want anything that could help someone to be free. So
such an awesome mission statement,
man.
That's why you deserve it. And I can tell that's real. You're not saying that to attract promotion. That's real.
That's why I'm like taking my time with the paid Substack tiers, because like what can I actually offer other than like, oh, if you want to pay me money, you can as like a donation, like because then no one's gonna do it. So I have to offer something. I think the best like middle ground is like you'll get early access to certain things, and you get like access to some sort of like private community where you can chat with me and other paid members. Because once the audience grows, I'm not going to be able to answer every comment and like chat with every single person who DMs me or whatever. Like it's just not feasible.
No.
So having some sort of like barrier to entry for having that connection with the audience is probably a good idea.
That is a really good idea.
But
well, that was my first instinct when I was watching your stuff. Was I wanted to talk to you. It kind of invites further dialogue. Like it can inherently one-sided in that you're recording and you're posting it.
That's why I love the podcast so much. Like, you can talk about ideas with people, and it's really cool.
It's super cool. Absolutely. And you just putting out like these real bangers of statements, but then just dipping immediately, like that competition thing, man. That I'm crazy. The only way to lose the thing, putting that out there and then just vanishing. Like you really leave the audience wanting more, as opposed to some content, it leaves you wanting less, or you scroll right. Like I'm never like this with the stuff. So I think that's a good self-awareness about the product that you put out, or the process that you put out. Is that it kind of invites a dialogue. So that could be something that you could, I don't think sell is quite the word, but
invite people to take in. Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest aspects of my content is like the nuance. Like I think it invites a lot of people who are deep thinkers, who like asking why and like digging into topics and stuff like that. And not to think about it in like super salesy or business terms, but like the short videos are kind of like a funnel for the longer form content, right? Like if you really like the shorts and you want a bit more nuance and a bit more depth, then there's the weekly newsletter. And if you want a bit more than that, I also have like the occasional essays that are longer form. And if you really like that as well, you'll probably like the podcast. And once I start I do want to do like longer form video essays at some point as well. Once I start doing those, there'll be that as well. But it's like there's sort of like tiers of like how much, if you want it, there's more there, is what kind of what I want to have as part of the Kaizen world of things.
Sure.
But like most people are just going to see a short video and they're like, oh, this is cool. And maybe they'll just watch some shorts and like, that's it. But that's fine. Like if I can help one person, then it's already worth it. So even if one person sees one video and gets something out of that,
mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. That's more than a lot of, like, this is something I've heard. Higher Up Wellness, he's a great Michael Smoke. He's the guy who I got the challenge of like the daily 1 minute no edits posting thing from.
Yep.
Something he says that his dad had always said to him is like, if you can help one person every day, that's more than most people will do in an entire lifetime. And not only that, a lot of people are so like self-focused and so like down on themselves and like stuck in that sort of wallowing mindset that they're not only like not helping other people, they're actively making other people's lives worse throughout their day.
Right.
So like if you can help one person, you're already winning.
Especially like Rick Rubin's prism metaphor that you cited.
Yeah.
Those people, especially if there's not an active effort being made not to be harmful, the light hits them one way and it refracts out in all sorts of shadows, like
or they just sort of absorb it and
keep what could be shared,
or
it's flowing out. It's like it feels like an almost unnatural amount is going in, like you are intaking so much, and then it's being processed like in a very pristine vessel, from what I can tell, and then coming out perhaps better. That's really cool, and that would be
that's how you see it from your perspective about me. Okay.
Yeah, which I also think is because you're certainly an artist. I mean, you've been talking about all sorts of creative acts, but even to me, I perceive everything as art. It's just all I can see. So I see you as doing a really creative act with the show and with the
idea smithing or something.
Idea smithing, sure, yeah, whatever.
Coin that term.
Did you?
No, I just thought of that right now.
Yeah, I like it. And I think that's like an artist's responsibility. Like that's what they owe someone for being afforded the gift of being able to do this, the talent of it. You should be taking in the world for its good and its bad, and then presenting it honestly, and then kind of a separate responsibility of a human is to be like as ethical as they can, which I really sense you're on the path.
Like separate.
So, but when they may as well.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you could say like the aspects of art are like being authentic and then being like virtuous and responsible or something.
Yeah, totally.
You can be authentic in like I'm trying to think, like, how would you be authentic in like a non-responsible way? It's probably just like
really impulsive spewing.
Probably, yeah. Impulsive spewing, maybe sharing like opinions without thinking about the ramifications of how they affect people.
I think so.
Like opinions are opinions and whatever. Like people should, you shouldn't be beholden to not offending people with your opinions, but you also shouldn't be so brash with them that you're like, oh, I don't even care. Like who gets hurt by my words?
Yeah.
So,
or even chasing that in an effort to feel important,
or trying to
powerful.
Get views or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. And then like being super responsible without being authentic. I'm not sure what that would look like in the extreme. I mean, maybe it's just like, virtue signaling and like pretending like you're this good person without sharing real parts of yourself, maybe.
But I would even suggest that's irresponsible.
Or even like presenting like that clean, polished, professional look without like allowing things to be a little messy and a little like you.
Yeah.
Like trying to make everything like streamlined.
Yeah.
I think the balance is probably both of those. That's a dichotomy I haven't thought about before. It's interesting.
You recorded one when you were like really sick.
Like
2 weeks ago or something, and it seemed to be a struggle. Like I was really sick around that time, like everyone in the city was, and I was like, I would not be recording myself right now because like my brain wasn't working, and I was just like watching, and you were like working through your thoughts. I was like, this man is at work.
No, every day I'm posting, so
yeah, that's cool.
I don't usually like record them ahead of time. It's usually like the videos are recorded the day of.
Yeah. Good.
So
sweet.
So it's like an ongoing process of like, keeping up that technique as we were talking about, not every video is a banger, but it's okay.
But yeah, just keeping up the technique. Absolutely. The process.
For sure. Oh, there was an idea I wanted to circle back to. Maybe it was when you were talking about, you were on that line of like, art being honest and like authentic versus being like responsible and ethical. Like it was
Okay.
just before we were talking about that. You were talking about
Just be like
okay.
5 minutes ago.
Yeah, I think I lost it, but that's fine. You're talking about yeah, just leaning into that balance. But maybe that's where I was going with it.
A balance between
The
which?
virtue and authenticity thing. But I think it was before we were talking about that.
Okay.
Anyways, that's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Sweet, man.
yeah, I'm glad to hear that the message is resonating for sure.
Yeah. No, it's working. And then I like to share with people when what they're doing is working. That's a big effort I make. I think it can be useful, like you were saying, try and help one person a day. I think it.
Oh, I remember what it was, but keep.
Yeah. Sure, yeah. I think that can be of use, and also I just can't help myself. It's my predisposition. If something's of use, I'd be really suppressing not to share with someone. Hey, this is awesome. I love what's going on. As long as I sense it would be wanted, I share it.
Yeah, for sure.
So anyway, just that to point out that there's probably a lot of people who are being impacted who might not have that personality or might not be so forthright with what's going on. So you talked about kind of two camps there: people who maybe are like not on the wavelength, and those who are probably a lot more on the wavelength who aren't voicing that or don't have the ability to voice it, perhaps because they don't know you in person or something like that.
Yeah, maybe. Or they're just, they're watching from the sidelines, but they're not like, they don't want to
cold water
reach
plunge
out to me or like, like my videos and comment and stuff. Because they might feel like it's weird. Maybe they haven't talked to me in a while or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember what I was going to say. It was talking about the, everyone can help one person. And you were talking about how people will sort of self-limit themselves. And I think another thing Michael Smoke talks about a lot is everyone has something to offer to the world. Everyone has a unique gift.
Yes.
And you have a responsibility, honestly, to fulfill that gift and that sort of like mission or calling and give it to the world as to the best of your ability, because that is where you will find your purpose, but it's also like economically where you'll get valued by like the free markets. Like people will pay you for what value you can offer, and everyone has unique value to offer. So if you can figure out what that is and find sort of like that alignment of like what I'm good at, what I enjoy doing, and like what people like respond to and resonate to, that is sort of like the essence of not just being an artist, but like finding your sort of internal, what people would call passion. But I think that's just not the best word for it.
It's kind of misleading.
There's a great Japanese term called ikigai, and this is like probably a better way of thinking about it, which is like you have these four, I think it's like a 4-sphere Venn diagram or something, maybe 5, and you have these different things, and it's basically this. It's like what you love doing, what you can get paid for, what the world needs, and what's the 4th one? What you love doing, what you can get paid for, what the world needs, and what you're good at. And the alignment of those things is like basically the fullest extent of your passion. Or in Japanese, I forget what ikigai means. I think it might be like fulfillment or purpose or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's basically like that is the alignment of the congruence of like the creation of work and yourself that I'm sort of talking about. But it's like you sort of know, like going back to the vibes and intuition thing, you sort of know what it is, because like you'll hear that sort of little voice nudging you closer to it when you feel that spark, or when you feel that sense of accomplishment from like submitting your video to a film festival or something, and you get that excitement from it or that optimism, and you have those goals in mind, and you're on the path towards those goals. Those are like those little micro signals within you that are like sort of telling you, hey, this is the thing right here.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to describe to people, and they'll sort of think you're crazy if you talk about it in that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're sort of just like, you're following that little voice in your head, whatever it is.
Yeah. yeah, they're really intangible instincts or yeah, signals that you're following. It's kind of impossible to describe, but you know
Yeah.
when you're on the path. You can feel it. You feel lined up.
Yeah, you have like an intuition about it.
Yeah, yeah. It's the opposite of any uncertainty or doubt that you could suffer from.
And everyone has one. It's the best. Like, it doesn't have to be
Oh,
art. I would say it's
yes, totally
but
right.
if you take art as such a broad approach where art can be, whatever sort of expression or creation into the world, like a business can be an art if you're doing
I
it in a
think so.
certain way.
Yes.
All sorts of different things can be an art. Then I think everyone is an artist, and finding that, listening to that little voice and being aware of it, cultivating the awareness for that little
Mm,
voice, and sort of developing that intuition helps you fulfill your personal art, whatever that is.
mm. Yeah. Oh, okay. Art used there as a term of the art of business or the art of
The art of literally anything,
athleticism,
pretty much.
anything.
Yeah. Like, yeah, I would say, yeah, sport can definitely be an art. Like, especially like bodybuilding can be an art, but it's sort of like for an example, but it's like a different thing because it's like bodybuilding's curious because it's like you're almost the sculpture, if you know what I mean.
Right.
Like, you're sculpting yourself in the gym.
Yep. I think
Um,
that's how Arnold once used that metaphor about himself, did he not?
Yeah, there's a book that I have. I don't have it. I want to get it. It sounds super interesting. It's called Sun and Steel, and it's about like a Japanese bodybuilder who talks about like katana smithing, but also like bodybuilding and how they're like this artistic process that like
Hmm.
they play off of each other, or like
That's really
the
cool.
way they're similar or something like that. Sounds super interesting. I haven't read the book yet, but I've heard great things about it. And I think that's the idea is like, and that's sort of what I know Kaizen is sort of a loaded term in a lot of business
Can you define it
scenarios.
for me? I don't know what it means.
Yeah, so in actual like direct definition, Kaizen is Japanese for Kai is improvement and Zen is good. So it just
Oh,
basically means like positive improvement, continuous improvement.
okay.
But within like business practices, Kaizen is usually used as like a sort of a business term to create a perfect, well-running machine where everything is like perfected,
Okay.
um, and like operating at its highest capacity. But the way I sort of define Kaizen is like a little bit different. It's more to do with like the balance of continuous improvement with the art of living well. And that's like,
Mm,
I had it in my bio for a while. I called it Kaizen, the practice of continuous improvement and the art of living well.
mm,
It's like the balance between ambition and gratitude, or like pushing yourself to do more but still
mm,
appreciating where you're currently at.
mm.
And I think that's incredibly important. It's what a lot of people are looking for, is they're looking for like this sense of achievement and accomplishment in their life, but they don't want to be miserable the whole way. It's really easy to
Yeah.
like motivate yourself from a place of insufficiency, or
Yeah.
like running away
Urgency.
from your past,
Right.
or like trying to reach some end product. And this is, tying back to the thing we're talking about with process, is like you want to enjoy the process but still strive for more. Like, you don't want to
Mm-hmm.
slip into like not improving, but you also don't want to punish yourself so much on the way to get to whatever you're getting to. So
Yeah. You have
it's
to
like
tolerate
finding
something
that
pretty
balance.
complicated.
Yeah.
Would you say, is there a contradiction in that you need to kind of reconcile with? Would you go that far?
It's kind of contradictory. I would say it's just sort of less of a contradiction and more of like a paradox to be managed.
Yeah.
That's why it's like a balance. And that's why,
It's a tough
like
one.
things like yin and yang are really interesting, like tie into this. It's super like cliche and like, oh, there's a little bit of this and everything and a little bit of that and everything and
Hmm.
whatever. But I think it's like most things in life are like that. It's a balance between two contradictory things,
Yeah.
right? Like, you could literally apply this to almost anything. Like, if you want to go like into politics, like there's a bit of truth in the left and the right, but it's about the balance of what's most useful for society and beneficial for everybody within both sides. Or if you go into like masculinity and femininity, like every man has a bit of both in him, every woman has a bit of both in her, but it's about the balance of like how those two play together. Or if you want to go into like even like science and art,
Mm-hmm.
like there's a bit of science in art. It's part
Mm-hmm.
of the technique, it's a part of like the honing the craft, it's a
Yeah.
part of like what works and what doesn't. But then there's also like the sort of like romantic artsiness side of things, where it's like, just having the science of the craft isn't enough, and you need the sort of the art side
Yeah.
of the, like, sort of like, I guess romantic is kind of the only way to put it, or like the free flowing side of the art. So it's like,
Mm.
it's super like cliche and trite with
Hmm.
the, like, yin and yang is one of the most like, yeah, obviously things, but I think it
Well, it really
applies.
works, and it's a nice immediate way for a
It's an
lot of
immediate
people
way to
to.
understand
Yeah.
it, and it's like one of the core pillars of how I define Kaizen as a life philosophy is balance. Is because most of the time that's what you're doing in life is you're balancing between two things that seem like opposites, and they seem like they don't
Mm.
work together,
Mm-hmm.
but they really do in a weird sort of way.
Is ambition and gratitude the two best words for it that come to mind?
Yeah, when you're talking about self improvement, I think
With
so.
something,
Yeah,
yeah,
or maybe like improvement is one side of things, and then sort of like presence and um, like an awareness and appreciation of the moment would be the other side. But yeah,
yeah,
ambition and gratitude are probably like
yeah,
a, a simpler way for people to think about it.
yeah, yeah. I like that. I'm more lopsided toward gratitude than ambition generally. So
Yeah,
I don't. I gotta work to be grateful like everyone, but it's pretty. I could come up with 10 things I'm grateful for at a given moment pretty well.
me
But
too. Yeah.
ambition has been more of something I've been working toward in my life. That's more uphill to me than gratitude.
Hmm.
Is one of them more instinctual to you?
Uh, I don't know, it's hard to say. I've grown a lot in the past couple of years, and I think my default mode for a lot of things and for a while has been like self improvement, pushing myself. So maybe more on the ambition side of things and like working to. I mean, for like, I think for a while before I started on my self improvement journey, I was kind of neither. Like I was
Mm,
kind of like not ambitious and not grateful, and that
that's
obviously
tough.
leads to a lot of like
Oh,
unhappiness and like you're not content with where you are at all, and you're like, how do I get out of this? And that's what I'm grateful for that now though, because like
right.
that's what kickstarted me into self improvement. But I think, yeah, for a while I was really obsessed with like optimizing things, productivity,
Mm.
figuring things out, self improvement. Uh, yeah, just like optimizing things to the point where like it's not optimal anymore.
Mm,
Like over
mm.
optimizing a lot of things, sort of getting a little obsessive about certain things. Like,
Yeah, that's never rewarded in real living reality.
yeah, and I think that's where the balance comes in is like, yeah, learning to be more grateful,
Mm,
learning to enjoy the process more,
hmm.
learning to be more present and in the moment. And the funny thing is like if you want to think about it in a different way, that is a form of self-improvement and sort of like working on yourself and ambition is like, oh, I'm becoming more aware, I'm becoming more grateful, I'm becoming like it's still like a you could frame it as like a self-improvement thing still.
Oh,
So
for
that's where
sure.
people
Yeah,
get
it's moving toward the
confused.
positive.
Yeah, that's where people get confused about it is like,
Mm,
oh, self improvement is just always good, and you're like, yeah, sort of. But if you're thinking about it in the way of like always improving things and optimizing things, it can be detrimental. Whereas if you're
yeah,
thinking about it more holistically from a larger point of view, where it's like, yes, I'm improving my health, I'm improving my financial like ability, I'm improving like maybe my skills in certain things. That's all like what people normally think of is like, right, like get in shape, get money, get more productive. That's like traditional self improvement.
yeah. Kind of
But
more
it's like,
external qualities.
yeah, but like there's the spiritual aspect and emotional aspect of it as well.
Mm,
And that's still self improvement.
for sure.
And it's not like contradictory. You can
Mm,
be
that's true.
spiritually and emotionally like attuned and also still externally successful.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people think, oh well, if I'm a billionaire, I have to be miserable, and if I'm like a monk, then I have to be poor. And it's
Mm,
like that's not you're
so
just
oversimplified.
creating
Yeah.
yeah you're just creating narratives that you think have to be true.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's an element of like people will say, if you chase too many things at once, then you're uh I forget what the quote is. It's like something of everything, master of none, or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
But I think that there's like an asterisk to that. It's like, yeah, maybe I'm not going to be the best at everything I do, but I can still be great at everything I try to do.
Yeah.
And
I'd take
you
that
don't want
deal.
to seek for perfection anyways. So
Right.
like also like being the best and being number one at something in the world, I think might be kind of overrated for certain things anyways. Like, do you really want to be the richest person in the world. You want
Mm-hmm.
to be the person that everyone thinks of when they
Yeah.
think of, oh, rich people, billionaires. Like they're going to start projecting
Yeah.
their stereotypes of what they think rich people are like onto you. They're going to start blaming you for a lot of different problems, even
Mm-hmm.
if you don't directly cause any of those things. Or maybe you're like, I'm sure a lot of billionaires aren't the greatest people, but like maybe you're a good person and you just have, Tony Robbins is like a great example, like a great billionaire,
Mm-hmm.
like, and he somehow sort of like snaked his way into not like a lot of people, like they just hate all the billionaires and stuff, but he's sort of
He's somehow exempt of that.
somehow,
Yeah.
probably because he focuses more on impact. That's one of his quotes is like, oh, I
Mm.
just focus on impact and the money sorts itself out. He's
Cool.
just, but like I don't think people want to be number one truly, because when you're in that
No.
position, there's so much pressure on you and there's
Yeah,
so many
there. Oh.
expectations and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you're just like proficient at a bunch of different things, you're far more impressive and you're far more interesting because you have variety to you. It's like, oh, this guy's super good at this thing, but he's also good at this thing, and
It's
he's
so
yeah,
enchanting when someone has all that. Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, I try and hone skills that kind of like can't be lost or can't be like dethroned, because like if you're the fastest sprinter in the world, like it's only a matter of years, before you're not, and then you got to grieve
Yeah,
that. And I mean,
for
someone's got
sure.
to do it, and it's really cool when they do, but that's not so interesting to me as to have like a Rick Rubin like touch in the world,
Yeah,
because I remember seeing this interview with him where he's being like asked what his skills are, and he's asked if he can play piano, and he says no. He's
yeah,
just a vibe master, but like emphasis on the master. Like
yeah,
he can hear so precisely when something's right or wrong. It's like impeccable taste.
yeah. It's
Um,
crazy.
it is insane, and a taste that like resonates with everyone. Like he knows what's in the middle of the table between
Yeah,
two people and how to bring people to an expression of that. Like phenomenal. But that he won't. He could lose everything, and I think that would still be within him. I think that would be harder to lose
yeah,
um, than the ability to run faster than anyone else, which is inevitable to lose.
yeah. Becoming non-fungible is the way.
Yeah.
It's something that Chris has talked about on Modern Wisdom a lot. I don't know where he got the idea from, or it might be his idea, but it's like becoming a non-fungible person, where it's like you're one of one. You're not
Mm.
exchangeable with other. Like, yeah, if you're the fastest sprinter in the world, you might be fastest for a while, but like there are other fast sprinters in the world. And it's
Yeah.
the same thing with maybe with like powerlifting. Like, yeah, you might be the strongest right now for this competition and you might have the world record currently, but like there's a ton of other people competing for the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And eventually someone will be stronger than you, or eventually someone will be faster than you. And if
Yep.
you focus more on your unique talents and
Yeah.
values that you can offer the world, then you become a non-fungible person, because then you're not exchangeable with other people or other skill sets and stuff. Like if you sort of, you don't have to specialize either. It can be like your unique combination of skill sets as well. Like
Yeah.
you can be a generalist, but it's still you're still unique in your ability
Totally.
to do a
Yeah.
bunch of different things.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I might be contradicting, but to really hone like a temporary title and the ability to get that, I think along the way you develop a lot of those skills. Like
Yeah.
Usain Bolt will always understand something that no one else does in a way. Like
Yeah,
to
I mean, like to get to that sort of level, you have to develop a sort of like level of systems and certain things to like getting to that sort of expert proficiency in anything, you're going to learn things that are applicable to other stuff
mm-hmm.
for sure. And I talk about this like uh, with the gym all the time is like going to the gym is so great because it teaches you a bunch of systems and mindsets and frameworks that you can apply to other things in life
Right.
that teach you like how to progress, how to improve at things. And like if you haven't had that ability, and I mean I also had the same thing with drumming, honestly. It's like where you do the boring obvious thing where you're working on, you know, rudiments, you're working on playing with a metronome, you're working on chops and technique and stuff, and you're just doing that like a little bit each day for years. It's boring. It's like, yeah, duh, that's how you get better at drumming, but it works. And when you prove to yourself you can stick to that thing for a long time, like a great Michael Smoke quote again is, it's not about doing an extraordinary thing once, it's about doing the ordinary, obvious thing for an extraordinary amount of time.
Right.
So it's more
making
about
your success inevitable.
It's more about outlasting everyone else, because a lot of people will quit along the way, for sure. And I mean, I was talking about this in my last week's newsletter, saying competition's kind of an illusion for a lot of domains, because you see all of the highest performers sharing their wins on social media or whatever. You don't see the tons of people who start something, start working towards it, and then quit. Like, you don't, as I've said, this podcast is in the top 30% of podcasts that have been created, not because I'm the best, like in the top 30% in terms of quality, but because 70% of podcasts don't make it to episode 10.
Woo!
So
cool.
It's just that, like, most people who are playing the game don't even play the game that long. And once I get to episode 100, that's top 1%. Which is crazy. So it's literally just an outlasting.
Cool, man. Wow.
And that applies to almost all domains. It's like, so many people start the game, but not many people play long enough to actually get the results they're looking for. So a lot of the competition is kind of just you competing with yourself and your own self-limiting beliefs or your own patterns and whatever. So that's a lot of what is actually stopping people.
Totally, yeah. That's like judgment, right? Like, they'll rewatch their podcast or their vlog and they'll cringe, and then they just can't.
Fear of judgment is part of it as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just it's really hard to learn that consistency and prove it to yourself. But that's why I say, like, things like the gym are so great, is because the gym is also good because it gives you that little, like, when you get a pump in a muscle or something, it gives you that sort of like little preview of where you're going to be in the future.
Right.
So it's a little easier to, like,
chase,
to sort of believe that the results are coming in a way.
Sure.
Whereas for a few other things, it's really hard to, like, see the results when you don't have proof that they might come right now. Like, it's hard to know I'm going to have more followers if, like, you know, growth is maybe slow for a month or something.
Sure. Yeah.
But that is to tie back to proficiency and, like, being an expert in a domain. You learn intangible, non-fungible skills and mindsets and stuff that you will be able to apply to other things when you're on that pathway. And, like, for me, that was drumming and going to the gym and, like, learning, oh, this is how I get better at stuff. This is, like, how skill acquisition works. Is that, like, you just chip away at it, doing, like, the obvious thing that your grandma probably told you when you were 5.
Yeah. She was right.
You just sort of shrugged it off because you're like, well, yeah, duh, obviously, grandma, but that's too easy. Like, I made a video about this the other day. People saying, that can't be the answer. It's too simple.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you already know the answers. You're just not willing to stick with it long enough. Right? Yeah, don't overcomplicate it. You're just not willing to stick with it long enough to actually see where it's going to lead.
Yeah, I'm the one human where drinking more water won't make me feel better, kind of thing. Like, you know, you never do that. Like, so the fallacy says, like, you won't do the most obvious thing for your health because you somehow feel above it, or there's some beneath it, or whatever.
Eat mostly whole foods in a balanced diet. No, that's too simple.
Not for me.
There's got to be a more, like, nuanced, complicated diet I have to follow.
Give me the secret.
That's not it. It's got to be like keto or something.
Yeah. Totally.
People get lost in this. There's this great meme that I love so much. It's like, you know, a standard bell curve, and it's called like the midwit fallacy. So you have like, on one end, it's like the nitwit who's, like, you know, super simple and just approaches life like in 2-word sentences. And you have the midwit who's, like, stuck in this optimization hell zone.
Oh, gee.
And then on the other end, you have, like, the sage who's saying the exact same thing as the nitwit. But he's just done the work to, like, work through, oh, it's just the simple answer. So, like, for an example, for, like, the gym, the nitwit would be like, lift heavy, eat protein. And then, like, the sage on the other side would be like, lift heavy, eat protein. And the guy in the middle is like, oh, I got to make sure that I'm optimizing my program so that I'm hitting the you know, the rectus femoris head of my quad, and, like, making sure I hit the right amount of volume every week, and I got to track all my macros perfectly, otherwise I'm going to lose all my gains. And it's like all this, like, it's like you're macroing in the minor. You're
that's so good.
Obsessing over all these little details that are not actually that influential. It's like the 80-20 rule, right? You want to focus on, like, the 20% of things that give you 80% of the results.
You want to focus on the 20% of things that give you,
So you want to focus on the big rocks,
yeah.
not the little pebbles.
Yeah, totally.
You want to focus on the things that actually move the needle And then if you want to be like, if you really want to push to that expert proficiency level, then you can start worrying about little pebbles if you really want to like push that extra mile.
Yeah.
But you have to realize like they're little pebbles. They're not going to move it that much.
Mm-hmm.
Like when people ask me about like supplements or something for the gym, I'm like, yeah, like you can take some things if you want, but like even creatine, like the most well-researched backed supplement of all time that like is proven to like increase muscle mass and muscle performance and stuff, isn't going to make that big of a difference if you take it or not. Like it's going to help a little bit for sure, but like 80% of what you're going to get is training right, eating right, sleeping enough.
Yeah.
That's basically it. So yeah, you can worry about all these little things to sprinkle on top, but like if you just do most of like high leverage things, you're good. Focus on the big rocks, ignore the little pebbles. And the midwit curve is just so great for that because you can see it. That's the figure out zone where you're trying to figure it out constantly. You're trying to like, how do I figure this
Always
out?
starting
like,
a new regime, right? Stuff like that.
It's easy to get tricked on like the end product or like the external result or, you know, where is this going or whatever, or like, why is this happening? And like, those are good things to ask. But when you get stuck on that, then you're not, you know, when you're enjoying the process more and being a little more simple, then you're either the nitwit or the sage. And it's like, you can pick which one of those you want to be, but it's usually better to be one of those.
Yeah. So, like, totally. If you have to be the nitwit, so be it, right?
Yeah, like have the simple answer. So like you probably already know the answer to whatever it is you want to do.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like, okay, people will get super wrapped up in like whatever thing they want to start. Maybe like before it took me forever to start making content because I was worried about what people were going to think about me, worried about how it's going to grow, blah, 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 blah. Doesn't matter. If I just knew about this curve earlier and I thought about, okay, what's the nitwit approach to how do I get good at making content? Probably post every day, be consistent with it, and then slowly improve over time.
Yeah, you knew when you were before the idea hit.
You knew it's the same sort of idea for like most things, right?
Yeah.
You already know the answer, but you're just like, you're convincing yourself it needs to be more complex than it is because you're like, it can't possibly be that.
No, totally.
But then if you do all the work and reach the other side of like the sagehood, then you realize, it is just the simple answer.
Yeah. But the midwit thing is so tantalizing because it feels like there's the answers. You feel like there's certainty, which we're all really after, right? And if you're at a early stage level of fear or trepidation or entering something, you just want to see yourself go up on a curve. So you just start learning stupid facts and stuff about it, but you're gonna.
And the thing is like, it's not entirely useless to be in the midwit zone. It's generally counterproductive, especially when you're at the peak of it. But like, when you're starting to learn a lot of things about, I'm just go back to the fitness example again. You're starting at the lift heavy and eat protein stage. You start learning more about like exercise selection, movement patterns, what muscles are doing what, volume, frequency, how program planning works, all of these different things about technique and like diet and exercise and all that. That isn't entirely useless. And if you like go through the whole curve and come back to sagehood where you're like, the simple answer is still just to lift heavy and eat weights. If you go through that, now you have added context and nuance that you can apply to different scenarios. So it's like, lift heavy and eat weights. Asterisk.
And then when an injury comes up or whatever it might be,
or if someone has a specific thing that they want to like work on, then you can give them tailored advice. Whereas if you're just stuck at the nitwit level, you're just
of low use.
You're a bit capped in your diversity of information, sort of.
Right. Yeah.
So like,
it's interesting.
The midwit thing, like you don't want to get stuck there, but it is useful to go through the whole thing and sort of like learn a lot, figure out how, like, it's like the learning arc whenever you learn a new skill. It's like you start off knowing nothing, and then the more you learn, the more you realize how much more there is to learn.
Right.
And then you realize, oh crap, there's like all this stuff I don't know. And then you realize how much there is you don't know. And then you realize like, this is what I know, this is what I don't know, and this is how I can operate within that. And that's kind of like the curve you move through is like, it's great to learn and learn and learn. And then you realize, oh, there's so much I don't know. And then you realize there's what's actually important, sort of.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's equally good to be the nitwit or the sage. I would say it's obviously better to be the sage. It's just a lot harder to move through that whole thing without getting stuck in the middle.
Yeah, almost a necessary passage. But you might want to expedite it if you can, right?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, you don't want to like If you're aware of it, I think that's what helps, is to
Sure.
like to know, oh, I'm in the mid-width stage right now. But if you don't
Hmm.
even know about it and you're just
Mm.
like,
You could
you're
mistake it for
yeah,
mastery.
it's easy to convince yourself that like endless optimization and endless knowledge gathering is like, this is what the experts do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's like, no,
Interesting.
they just know what the big rocks and little rocks are and how to leverage them properly.
Huh, yeah. Um, Revisiting creativity, but on that topic,
Yeah, sure.
creativity in the gym. Can you explain to me bodybuilding and the art of it, or how can one be creative in something that's so like if you start really doing it your own way, I assume you get injured, right?
Hmm.
So what is that balance?
Not necessarily. It's hard to injure yourself, especially when you're starting out, because you're not really going to be strong enough to hurt yourself unless you're like ego lifting and being dumb,
Okay,
like lifting more weight than you can realistically handle in a safe manner.
sure.
But so that's why I would say like the bedrock of the gym is like form and technique, and then
Mm-hmm.
everything else goes on top of that. So like once you have form and technique on how to do exercises correctly, which is generally just kind of like lifting things in a good range of motion and controlling the weight, is like the main two things.
Okay.
If you're only doing like a half rep, then you're not training like
Mm,
half of the movement. So
sure.
your bicep, like for a curl, for example, if you're not training the bottom half of a curl,
Uh-huh.
you're not strengthening the bicep in that position. So it'll
Mm.
be vulnerable in that position.
Okay, yeah. I see.
Um, just for a quick example, like for that. But basically, form and technique's the baseline, and then you build on top of that. And like, yeah, lifting does definitely become sort of a science. There's a lot of studies on like what's the most optimal thing to do, and people get
Mm-hmm.
trapped in that, obviously, with like the
Mm-hmm.
science-based lifting community.
Right, yeah, yeah.
But I would say it's a science in that aspect where you can go, okay, this generally works for most people. I'm going to try that out. And like I find what works best is like a combination of that and sort of also the art side of it, where it's like, what do I enjoy about lifting? What are the movement patterns that I like just really connect with and like I
Mm.
really enjoy? They might not be the most optimal, but it's like what makes me like, because the thing is with fitness and like all these studies, it's really hard to capture the complete diversity of like different people's bodies and stuff within a study. And it's like, yeah, certain things will, on average, be the most optimal for most people, but you have to try a lot of stuff out with yourself, and you
Mm-hmm.
like not constantly flipping through exercises and stuff, but like give it a good shot, give it a few months to like try it out and like see if you can connect with it and whatever. And then if it doesn't, try something else. And it's like a slow process. But that's, I would say, is kind of like the art side of it.
Sure, yeah.
Even that is like kind of a science in a way, but it's like an experiment you're doing on yourself where you're like,
That's cool.
does this connect with me? Do I enjoy this? How does this feel? And you're
Hmm.
sort of getting used to the feeling of moving weight around with your body.
Hmm.
And that over years is really cool because it builds uh, a couple of different things. I mean, it builds the evidence you can stick to things, as we were talking about earlier, with
Yeah,
consistency
an
and like
identity.
proving you can do it. Yeah, you become like a gym goer.
Mm.
But then there's the other aspect of it where it's like I'm connecting with my body. I'm more aware of how it moves in space. I'm more aware of how
Right.
capable I am to do things and like function of the different movements that I'm exercising in the gym. And then the third thing is like, as you start to get into better and better shape, you change, since your body is everywhere with you, you change your own presence in the world
Right.
because
For sure.
you know the work you've put into it, all the hours you put into the gym, and you carry it with you. And it's sort of like an aura that
Mm-hmm.
you have with you where it's like, it's proof of like, hey, this is the work I've put into myself. And you can see it like immediately. Like it's hard to tell if someone meditates a lot and they're very like spiritual and like emotionally, attuned and connected with themselves. You can't really tell just by looking at them. They're like, oh, that's an enlightened dude right there.
Yeah.
Maybe you can get a bit of a vibe off of them, but it's hard to see that.
Mm.
Whereas when you go to the gym a lot and you're very fitness oriented and you take care of your body and stuff, people will see it immediately and
Yeah.
they'll judge you for it, even like, not in a necessarily a negative way, but like they'll have the judgment of like, oh, this is a person who's disciplined. They'll
Yeah.
just immediately create assumptions about you.
Right.
And that's just kind of the way the world works. But also, it's a little tragic because they'll think, on average, most people will be a little nicer to you. They'll treat you a little better. They'll have sort of a baseline
Respect.
level of respect for
Yeah.
you, even if it's subconscious. And they might, especially if you go from being out of shape to in shape, you'll realize people treat you better. when you're in shape, which is kind of a sad reality of the world.
That's really interesting.
For people who are out of shape, is that they may not know that same level of like kindness from strangers.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why I think it's great for everyone to get into, no one has to be a bodybuilder. Not everyone has to be a bodybuilder or like, be super lean and super muscular. But if you can get into like a better, more fulfilled version of your own potential and like build that evidence with yourself that you can get into healthier shape and like you carry it around with you, that is one of the most powerful forms of confidence because it's irrefutable. It's like, hey, I did this.
Yeah.
Like I used to be 200 pounds overweight and now I'm this. Not personally, but like, for someone who was and gone through that journey, that is incredibly powerful, not only for the mindset it creates, but also just like the evidence you carry with you.
Sure, yeah. The way I can do anything.
The way you move through the world is different. So I would say like the science of lifting is the figuring it out, the trying things out, the seeing how it all works together, combining like studies and scientific evidence with your own personal experience. That's like the sciencey side of it. And then the more creative artsy side of it is like the expression of your capability, your strength, the different, like there's also like more artsy forms of lifting as well. Like calisthenics can be a lot more artsy because it's like
kind of dance oriented almost. Is that
sometimes? I mean, it's more about like you doing different poses. Like I don't know if you've seen like certain calisthenics movements where it's like the planche. Like it ties into
like
gymnastics.
Your feet and your head are at the same level and
that might be lever. I'm not sure exactly of all the movements, but like I know there's one, where you're sort of like you're on your arms and your arms are straight and then your body's sort of like hovering, where you're like doing these cool movements with your body and holding weird positions that require a lot of strength and stability, but it's more like, it's almost more artistic.
I could see that.
And then bodybuilding, the way that would be artistic, I would say, is like the analogy I mentioned before, where it's kind of like a sculpture of the self, where you're like, there's a dark side to it where it can get obsessive, of course, and there's steroids and all that. But in its purest, most like beneficial, positive form, it's like seeing the vision of how you want your body to be, and then sort of like sculpting your way towards that through lifting. Where you're like, oh, I want like this part of my upper body to look this way, so I'm gonna orient my training around that to like, to give the certain look to the way I want the form of my silhouette
so artistic.
To be. It's super cool.
With the hardest medium, the most difficult medium, right?
One of the hardest mediums, because it's literally like you have to, like forge it yourself.
And so slowly.
Through sweat and, super slow. Especially like the longer you grow muscle, the slower the muscle grows.
Oh, yeah.
Like, well, it's not exactly how it works. It's basically like your muscles get used to so like the way muscle grows is it's stimulus from the environment, right?
Okay.
And the stimulus triggers adaptation within the body. So like you put the body through difficult stuff and through different movements of lifting heavy things, and then it goes, whoa, we need to be ready for next time so we can not die or so we can be more capable or whatever. So then it builds the muscle tissue to be able to handle that, and that happens very slowly. When you're first starting out, this is what people will call like newbie gains.
Your body's just shocked.
You gain strength and muscle super fast.
Oh, interesting.
So you can make a lot of progress in that first like 6 months to a year. But then the next couple years, you'll probably gain a lot less muscle than you did in that first period of time.
Right.
But now it's because your body's sort of getting used to the stimulus a little bit. So it's just adding on additional muscle past that point. It's sort of like diminishing returns to a certain extent, where you just get less and less. You'll still grow the longer you lift, but like it just slows down a bit. But it's an interesting thing. So like the gym and fitness is definitely one of the core pillars that has like sparked self-improvement for me, for sure.
And was it because it was like the most visual demonstration to yourself of change?
Probably, I mean, it's the most like real tangible thing you can do self-improvement wise, I think, to start off with, where it's like, as I was saying, it's that you carry the evidence with you every single day, and you're not going to forget about it. Especially like when I was younger, being a bit out of shape and being chubbier, like that was something that like I had struggled with a lot is like self-image and like not feeling confident in myself and not feeling like comfortable in my own skin. And like you sort of, even if you don't realize it, you sort of carry that shame around with you. And sort of breaking free from that is like one of the biggest forms of self-proof that you could give yourself, because it's like, if I can get through that, what else can I do? Like, what else can I work on? What else can I, like, I can do anything. And then you start, then I, and went from there into like philosophy and journaling and meditation and spiritual curiosity and like expanding all these different areas of my life. And it just sort of spread out from there.
Cool.
So yeah, it's not like it's kind of like a template almost, where it's like, this is like, as I was talking about, like, this is a skill acquisition, but it's also like a methodology of change that I can use within my life. And like, it's not going to be the exact same for other areas, but like I can take similar ideas and like use them in similar ways.
Yeah, like getting that one-on-one skill, even if you might not be aiming to be the strongest, I don't know, in the world, but like from that place of pursuing niche greatness, you learned a lot about yourself and what you're capable of, and you apply it to totally non-physical pursuits as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a hard part of it as well is that like people might hear this message and think that like people assign a lot of like moral and ethical value to like being in shape and being healthy and all this stuff. And it's like, you do want to be healthy, but like someone who's in shape and someone who is out of shape, they're not like a better person. They've realized more of their own like potential and stuff, and they've worked on themselves, but they're just at like a different stage in self-development. Like people think of like your value as a person as, I think they think of it as all one thing, when it's really like two separate aspects, where it's like everyone has intrinsic human value as like a life or as a soul or whatever, however you want to believe in it, right? Like life is precious, and like each individual person has inherent value as a living being. But then there's also like another aspect of value where it's like the value you can provide to the world. And if you're at a place where you can give more of your value to the world, like if you're healthier and stronger and more capable, you're going to be better equipped to help other people. So you're quote unquote more valuable, but not like as a person, you're more valuable to other people and to help other people. Like when you're your best self, you're able to help others better.
Yeah.
So
undeniably,
you could say that you're more valuable, but it's not like intrinsic value. It's like a different kind of value.
That's really interesting.
So that's an important...
I've never seen that distinction made.
Yeah, I think there needs to be a better term for like the other type of value.
Yeah.
Where it's like maybe internal intrinsic value is like worth, like your worth. And then value is like what you can provide to others.
A usefulness of some sort.
Usefulness, yeah. Like maybe that's a better distinction, like value and usefulness. Because people will sort of mix them together and get really confused about that. Where it's like, if you say healthier people are more valuable, it sounds like a crazy moral comparison, but it's not about that. It's about like, they're able to help other people. They're more fulfilled in their potential, and they're able to be more useful and more serving to others.
Yeah. Which is good reason to maintain it and to pursue it, right? Like, so that you can
it's a great thing to strive for.
Give back. Yeah, and provide. Well, that's really cool.
For sure. Are there any more questions you had about like, I'm curious, like I'm still curious about some of your creative process, and you're more like visual arts oriented, which I think is cool because you come at it through this like visual arts lens. You also have a lot of like classical, like academic training, for lack of a better word, but like you've taken a lot of classes about, I assume, like art history and art principles and stuff like that through university. Whereas I'm, as an artist, pretty much entirely self-taught, where like I've also like, I don't really have any expertise or practice in visual arts as a medium. Like I do a bit of graphic design as a necessity type of thing for like my newsletter or whatever, or for marketing on social media and stuff, or for like YouTube thumbnails and stuff like that, or for projects I would do in school. And like, I had the music pathway I was doing for a while where I did a bit of composition and drumming and stuff, but it wasn't. And then I also did game design for a while, but that was a different thing.
Was that the computer science era?
Yeah.
Interesting.
But most of my creativity, I think, is around like ideas and writing.
Yep.
And that's how it like plays into most things. But I think it's interesting that like most of my creative pursuits have been non-visual. and yours have been more
all
visual.
Yeah.
And I think like the intersection of those is really cool. And
yeah, they often or sorry, if you have a specific question before
no, I wasn't. I was going to kind of wrap it up, but go ahead.
Well, yeah, they often depend on each other, and it's a real coincidence, or maybe like a unlikelihood lottery win if someone has both. And I find it really unlikely. Like oftentimes, visual artists there seems to be a pattern where they can have a deficit in other areas, and then a lot of people don't have much sense with visual arts as well. But yeah, it's really cool when you see the intersection of them. Like a great example being a really apt album cover, that really like
that's done by the artist that actually like made the music as well.
Well, but that would be amazing. But so seldom do you get that. Often you maybe would have the artist's input, but just like that would be a really successful example of collaboration. Yes, exactly. An artist or a photographer who really understands the core of the album and then creates cover art that.
Great album art like elevates the music.
Yeah,
it encapsulates like the vibe of the actual like the sounds of the album.
Yes. Like, and then you can't think of it otherwise. You know what I mean? Like,
I know.
Like the album is pink to you or something like that.
Exactly.
It's really cool.
It's really cool. Like I've always thought like the best album artworks look like how they sound.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's why I use it as an example, because a lot of people can connect with that one. So
that's super cool.
Yeah. So I think it's a shame when like a very creative conceptual thinker or a very creative visual artist or whatever the situation isolates themselves from the surrounding world, or really discredits the power of collaboration, or has this belief that they need to do it all. Like I think that's a huge part of the creative process, is knowing when your role is over, knowing when it's finished, because a lot of stuff gets ruined by kind of beating the dead horse of it a little bit, and like
trying to do everything at once.
Trying to do it all at once within a deadline, as we established, is always a nightmare if it's abrupt or unnatural or anything like that. So yeah, visual arts is my instinct. Again, like drawing and painting is all I did in terms of any artistic practice until university, and then halfway through university I began to involve narrative and stuff like that. And so I stay in a mentality of very much being a student, and I'm by no means not a student of painting or drawing. It's a shame I'm not in more classes.
To be in anyways, is to always be learning. So
absolutely. But especially outside of that, where I'm less instinctual and where my gut feelings, like we were talking about the flow state and following those signals, I'm going to be less. I'll make worse calls about something like narrative or something like, like if I'm making a film, that's not just coming to me naturally. So
your craft sort of hones your ability, like the vibes thing we were talking about. Your craft and technique like hone your intuitions around it.
Yep, totally. So I want to always sharpen the stuff that's a little bit less intuitive for me and pursue that. And just being a student of life, trying to be more well-read, trying to watch more movies, actually, because film is really what I'm trying to do now. So in terms of an artistic practice, it's so cool. Anyone who's creative and honest and humble is always learning, right? Anyone's always learning. That doesn't just apply to art.
But you don't let the lessons in.
And you can. There's a stink that like covers an artist's work when you can see when they stop putting the lessons in, or stop taking them in.
Yeah, it gets stale.
It gets really
the band that remakes the same album. Over and over again, because they're just trying to tread over
what worked once. Right, and it's just always a
painful.
Yeah, it is. So I don't know if that answers the question, but that's I'm very aware of like where there are holes in my ability. And then part of the work is to not beat myself up about that, or not view them as these, not get fatalist about them. Like I know that that's not forever. Like, I might be out here trying to learn piano for the whole night to score the next movie. But at this point, I'm 27. I'm probably not going to learn piano as well as my friend who can play piano, like who I would get to teach me, right? So I'll probably just employ them to do it. But
and they could come up with ideas you wouldn't even think of. So it can
absolutely, because they know the language. Like I'm like,
exactly.
What about a C chord here? But whereas they were like
yeah.
dancing on the thing. But still, like even just always trying to invite in, even if I'm really amateur at something, so that I could present maybe a more of an expert on the craft with some rough ideas, or like with that childlike sense of like, like I just discovered green, like what can we do with green, and they might have some big ideas of like, what about forest green for this one,
Yeah,
so
for sure.
That's kind of why I think it's good to dip my toes in as many creative things as I can, while still like, maintaining knowing my lane also.
Yeah, for sure. Like helping you communicate with other people.
Yeah.
Who have those other strengths and other expertises, but like also focusing more on your own strengths and like leveraging your strengths in balance with theirs.
Yeah.
So that together you can like, create the best art you can.
Totally.
Collectively.
And to have a little bit of a palette of my own, or a language of my own, I can advocate for myself better, so that if, to make sure, for example, if I was getting someone to score a film, kind of to be on the lookout that, not that this is unlikely this would happen, but if you had some bad luck and they're just trying to cram in what they're excited to be doing, but it might not be in congruence with your vision. Work. Yeah. So to have some rapport.
Directors are able to do that is like have the vision and be able to like share it with everyone, so that everyone can see what the vision is, but also like put a piece of themselves into it without changing what it is.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, maintain the integrity of the core of everything.
Yeah, finding the core of the piece, and like everyone's working towards that. That's when like the best art is made. Yeah, especially like with films, when there's so many different people working on so many different things.
Yeah. That's, I think, hugely the job of a director, right? Is to make sure that nothing's getting lost, and that consistency is all there.
Finding the core of the piece.
Yeah,
that's probably why like some of the best films and directors are like the writer-director, like Christopher Nolan, Denis Villeneuve. Like they have the vision and they're able to express it to everybody, so that everyone's working towards it in the best way. Yeah,
and it's just clean, and you can feel when a movie is being pulled against itself, and you can feel when a movie is moving in unison toward the end goal, and it just like lifts, like Interstellar. Like by the end of it, every moving piece had so much value to give you a feeling like you've never even had before. Like that's movie magic, and it's no coincidence. It's not.
I think that's the pinnacle of what art can be, for sure.
Pretty much. And it's not just throwing paint at the wall and being a crazy genius, blah blah blah. I didn't sleep for a week, haven't eaten since yesterday. That's never gonna create an Interstellar.
It's the balance, the science of craftsmanship, and the romance of art.
That's an interesting. I'd say that's something we arrived at today. Hey, and speaking on the creative process, was that it needs to have
a little bit of both.
And that has been a slow lesson for me. Like in going to university, I thought it was all about all-nighters and caffeine and being weird. And I've learned being weird certainly continues to be a useful tool as an artist, I find. But a lot about being consistent and disciplined, and actually knowing when to show up and stuff like that is of. I really underexplored that for the first half of my practice, and now I'm just getting excited about all the fruit that comes from that kind of labor.
That's cool, because I think I'm coming into it with the other way, where I was like really focused on the science of craftsmanship, and now I'm like learning the romance side of the art of what I'm doing. But it's a cool balance. And really enjoyed the conversation today.
You too, man.
Thank you so much for coming on.
That was really fun. Thank you.
Definitely excited to speak with you again at some point in the future. This was great.
Cool.
Time flew by. I'm sure it was like over 2 hours or something.
Oh, heck yeah, man. No, thank you, Zach. I appreciate it.
Thank you.